What's up, MetaShift, and welcome back, everyone, to another exciting playoff match in our Diamond Division of MSL. I'm your host, Mackie, and I am very pleased to be back with all of you today, my MetaShift community, and those from beyond the MetaShift community here to watch this matchup between Mint Ship Theseus and Rising Tide Abyss, both teams of which I have been told have been talking to each other just a little bit on the Diamond Banter chat recently, so I'm excited to see what the extra emotional stakes of this match could potentially do for what we're eventually going to be seeing on the rift between these two teams. For me, I've been really enjoying doing these casts so far simply because the game is so different right now. You see it all over social media right now. The game's pace feels so much faster. What's interesting is that Riot has been saying that, according to their statistics, games have been running a little bit longer, and they don't think games are particularly snowbally. So it does seem that a lot of teams right now are simply opting into a lot of fighting, which, you know, who can be upset about it? It definitely makes the games feel like they're more action-packed. And personally, as someone who's been part of the League of Legends community for years and years, I'm here for it. I think it's a welcome change. I think the game did need to be maybe not sped up a little bit. As we said, Riot thinks the game is about as long as it used to be, but the pace of the things that you can do inside the game, the side laning, the actual tapping of the turrets to get those crystals off, I think it's been a very beneficial change as far as the game goes. With that out of the way, both of our teams, of course, are here already well into the draft, and we are going to have quite a bit of time on our hands as both teams are going to have to, of course, pick their champions inside of Champion Select and then take us to our spectator delay. So we'll take our time breaking down what both of these teams might be thinking in their draft going into this new season of League of Legends with all new draft priorities. Something that we talked about last stream and will reiterate today is the fact that when there's an entirely new patch of League of Legends like this where so much has changed and it's right before or right in the midst of a playoff run for an amateur league, you know, adaptability becomes the number one thing that your team needs to be able to showcase in order to be able to be successful in these playoffs. One team or another having a little bit more data or information about what is really strong right now, and then trying to model what is really strong onto, or I should say graft what is really strong onto your team identity is just so important when you're going into these long best of 5 series where so much is, like I said, so different. So we'll have to see if either one of these teams have some new tech to show us today. We saw a lot of tank junglers yesterday during our Noble stream, saw a lot of Bandle pipes, saw a lot of Zeke's convergence as well. So I am curious to see if we'll be seeing a lot more of that already, not to jump too far ahead in the draft, but instead of seeing some of those tank junglers that were featured so heavily in our last Noble matchup, instead we're going to have things like this Jarvan and this Xin Zhao picked up, who are by no means weak champions, but, you know, they might just be things that, well, at least in the case of Xin Zhao, have fallen out of favor a little bit inside of the meta. And so without further ado, as our teams are winding down the rest of the draft, let's just take a gander. Let's take a little glance back to what the beginning of the draft looked like for both of these teams, as it will glean some insight as to what either one of these teams are thinking they need to prioritize and remove from the opposing team in order to win this greater best of 5 series. Starting over on the side of Mint Ship Theseus, removing things like this Lilia, which I think is much more of this stylized pick. Lilia, of course, has been a strong champion for quite some time, but she's just a champion that gets gated by what she's really meant to play against. The champion is very effective against short-range champions, but struggles a lot at anything that can either impede her movement altogether very easily or just into things that are too high of range for her to really engage with. But the champion definitely can be very potent when in the right hands, just one of these forgotten but powerful champions. Gwen, we've been seeing a lot of bans of, including yesterday, as a result of the fact that this champion is extremely powerful with Dusk and Dawn, as well as going into things like the Nashers. The champion just now has a wonderful first item spike and scales so nicely with each independent item, and removing the Smolder as well. This champion is still in a very good spot after the Essence Reaver hotfix nerfs And, you know, Smolder is slated for some nerfs next patch, but for right now, the champion still remains very strong and a very consistent and reliable scaling threat. So overall, it seems that Mint, Ship of Theseus, and their first 3 bans are mostly looking to remove a lot of the hyper carry scaling threats that Rising Tide Abyss could pick for themselves early in their draft. On the other side of the coin, Viego, still kind of an annoying champion, but maybe not as meta. This could also be one of those more pocket pick type situations as to why you'd be banning away Viego. There's definitely things that make the champion more and less effective in the draft overall, and, you know, not the most powerful champion right now. He does have some nice assassin builds, some okay fighter builds, but, you know, it's neither here nor there, simply just not something that you necessarily would see in every single series. Looking at the rest of the draft, Wukong I still think is like this really consistent early pick that you can always go for, just because the champion has pretty nice scaling, has pretty nice early skirmishing, and has pretty nice team fight potential. I don't think there's a lot that's wrong with Wukong right now, a lot that he really feels, a lot that he leaves you feeling like you're lacking. As I'm leaving a note for my team right now, or for my teams right now, to let them know that I'm ready to go when they are. The Sivir is something that I have personally been playing quite a bit, and this champion is demonic. She's so consistent as far as her lane phase, and then once she's out of that lane phase, constant mid prio, constantly making you match her. She punishes your turrets super hard, and then she also can roam to sides so effectively, pop her ultimate, and then in a big team fight, she just does so much damage. So unsurprisingly, Sivir also getting some bans next patch, but removed for the beginning of this series. She still does have some pretty bad AD carry counters in lane, but again, if you're able to get through that as Sivir, she is still just this very, very consistent champion, getting 6 to 7 minions per wave, and then just getting so much gold off of the AD carry quest, and then becoming a very big threat very quickly in the game, on top of being so safe. Now, with all that being said, Mint, Ship of Theseus, of course, decided to go with their Scion first pick here, which we did see yesterday as well. Scion has been a pretty highly prioritized pick for many teams, creating that very difficult to counter pick top lane champion that should be able to get through a lot of matchups, and even in tough ones, eventually still does just upgrade to being that very strong frontline threat. He does have some pretty nice HP stacking items that he can leverage at this time of the season as well, with a lot of the new tank items. So Scion looking like a pretty strong champion overall in the meta right now. On the side of Rising Tide Abyss, I do like Caitlyn a lot as just a straight up blind pick. Mostly because a lot of the things that you would tend to match Caitlyn with in lane, a lot of lane bullies aren't as effective right now, and Caitlyn is kind of interesting because she's like a lane bully that also scales really hard. So I think Caitlyn is like the best of all of those lane bullies. If she does get prio in the lane phase, her chipping turrets actually feels super impactful now. And if she's ever able to find like a really good base timer, she usually can use the home guards to get the back to lane before her opposing bot lane is really able to shove out a wave. So I do think Caitlyn is just blindable at this stage of the meta. Jarvan I also think is quite strong right now, though I always say it when I'm watching these Diamond series. He's just always such a spooky champion to have to just straight up blind like this. He still can have reasonably good effectiveness, but he just has, you know, more potential counters than other champions might. But after the R1 and R2 from Rising Tide Abyss, Mint, Ship of Theseus did decide to go for one of the other most powerful AD carries on the patch, being that Jinx. Picking Jinx into Caitlyn is super interesting because typically this is only something you would do on red side, because you want to be able to contain or retain your support counter pick, so that way you can make sure the Jinx at least gets a good lane phase or good support matchup, because obviously Jinx is losing into Caitlyn pretty consistently. And so you need a good support matchup often to be able to crush through the lane phase as the Jinx. After the Jinx, though, they do reach for the Xin Zhao, which creates a pretty strong frontline threat. Xin Zhao also pretty good at being able to avoid Caitlyn's damage with that Crescent Guard, and can duel the Jarvan pretty effectively. And after seeing the first 3 picks on the side of Mint, Rising Tide Abyss did decide to go for the Yone. I think this champion's so gross. In all of my games, this champion is just hitting their item spikes and then just completely running away with the game with crit. Gon seems so ridiculous. On top of that, the guy can just build all of the really consistent and strong bruiser items in the game, becomes so survivable, and then on top of that just deals an absurd amount of damage and is so mobile. So again, I think so far, Rising Tide Abyss having a good read on some of the most powerful champions for the current patch. And after the first 3 picks on either side, checking back in with what some of the bans are, Rising Tide Abyss did decide to get away or ban away that Lulu, which I think is very smart. If you see things like Jinx Xin Zhao on the current patch, banning things like this Lulu makes a lot of sense because the champion buffs up both Jinx and Xin Zhao very hard. We did see a very similar draft yesterday where the Lulu had a lot of effectiveness. And this Thresh ban basically just indicates that they kind of know what support they probably want to go for, and then they just want to make sure that Thresh isn't something that can be picked into it. On the side of Mint, getting rid of that Galio is removing that supplemental engage condition, especially in a world where you kind of already know you want to go Akali. And Nautilus is probably a similar situation for Mint, where they kind of know they want to go for an enchanter, but they don't want to give Caitlyn the luxury of being able to use that Nautilus to be able to really assert herself in lane, though Caitlyn does tend to prefer having a ranged champion next to herself. And just for those of you who might be wondering, we're about a minute 40 before the spectator delay is complete. And so we'll wrap up our thoughts here with the rest of the draft. Akali's been looking really good with Gunblade. Very good champion for being able to threaten Caitlyn. Very interested to see how it's going to go, laning directly into the Yone. I imagine it's a bit of a skill matchup there. Seeing how the side lanes go will be very interesting. Though, as I'm seeing that there's an Orianna, the Yone will of course be going top. And the Orianna should have the opportunity to bully the Akali for a while before she gets that level 6 in Gunblade spike. And finally, both teams going to go for enchanters. A little surprising considering the overall strength of engage supports and also peel supports. Things like Rel, Leona, and Braum are all so powerful, but enchanters can be quite good too if you have engage options, which Rising Tide Abyss has a lot of, so I think it makes a lot of sense for them. Makes a little less sense for Mint Ship of Theseus, as the Melio is less effective at buffing things like that Xin than the Lulu, though it will make the Jinx quite powerful. With all that out of the way, we are about 30 seconds into our 30 seconds before our spectator delay has concluded, and so I will be right back once we are in game. Okay guys, sorry for the technical difficulties with the start of this game. Riot Client has been made by a small indie company, of course, and so it doesn't always like to work. But now that we have all that sorted out and we are underway right here, we are going to just get ourselves acquainted with what's going on so far in this game. We did see a couple of kills coming through right there for the side of Mint ship Theseus. We're going to have one going over for the mid jungle of the side of Jarvan Orianna. So we did get a little bit of 2v2 going on there, and you know, for those of you who don't mind, I am going to see if we can just get a little bit of time controls right here. The kills happened right here, so let's get ourselves a little rewind going and we can get a proper understanding of what happens, yeah? Okay. We'll start from right here. When people come in after the game, it'll be a little delayed, but it is what it is. Cool. So as we can see, Alpha Pig 218 moving in on the Raptor camp of Idle, but Idle, of course, showing up here, not wanting to give away his Raptor camp as VR Sloth Balls is able to hit the level 6 on the Akali immediately. Idle starts out skirmishing with the Xin Zhao, as Idle is going to be able to proc his Conqueror and start kiting back away from the Akali is going to ult in on top of the Orianna, and Idle is going to be able to win the 1v1. Sloth Balls is going to miss on that Q on Korean Flamer, and Sloth Balls is actually just going to choke that right there, as Korean Flamer was 100% dead to rights there, at least for a 1-for-1, but Slothball is just entirely missing on that Akali Q right there, is going to mean that it's just going to be an 0-2 start for the side of Mint ship Theseus, as really Idle just won his ones, as well as the fact that Korean Flamer, with the help of their turret, were also able to win their ones. So it's just going to be a little bit of tension, I think, right there for the side of Slothballs at the very least, who should have been able to have a solo kill on a manaless Orianna. Gonna definitely have to try to roll their shoulders, take a deep breath, and reset after that one, which must be a little bit of a tilter. On bot side, we are going to have to constantly be monitoring the situation along with what's happening with the Caitlyn Seraphine, who should be able to win that lane phase pretty handedly. So far, just a modest CS lead for that Caitlyn, as Korean Flamer is going to pop that shockwave in the mid lane. Just going to take a modest trade onto Slothballs, who is going to be under no real duress, having... well, Hanser actually will be under much more duress, as they are going to get hit by the flag and drag. They still have the flash and barrier available. Caitlyn is going to flash back forward as Alpha Pig makes their way onto the scene. Going to be able to line up that Wind Becomes Lightning and go in onto Idle, as Hanser is trying to step back into the play and drop some DPS. Nobody is quite going to get low enough to actually die here, though Hanser is going to lose both their summoner spells. Caitlyn will have invested the flash. Going to be interesting to see which of these two bot lanes are going to be able to go for the base first. As we addressed in the early stages of the champion select, having home guards is a massive advantage for whichever bot lane is able to find a more favorable base timer. And of course, both junglers are always thinking about whether or not the Caitlyn's flash has been blown. There's always a big onus to make sure that the Caitlyn's lane is broken as early as possible in the game, so she's not able to apply pressure freely. In this case, Caitlyn sidestepping just barely on that Melio soccer ball kick is going to barrier up Hanser's R. So Caitlyn could have taken a recall right there, but decided to stay, trying to be cheeky with manipulating this wave onto their side of the rift, as Idle has returned to look for a play onto Hanser and Hardstuck, and the Cataclysm is going to be the end of Hanser's life, as we're going to have a skirmish going on in mid, so we will on bottom as the traps from Caitlyn come down to try to slow down the Xin Zhao. The flag and drag is going to go back in on a Hardstuck as Idle gets bounced away by the Melio soccer ball. The ace in the hole comes through, and the shield runs out just in time for Sifra to be able to pick up that kill onto, of course, Alpha Pig with that Seraphine Q, and that's going to just be the 2v2 in the mid lane and that 3v3 in the bot lane being won out once again by Mint ship Theseus, as right now Rising Tide Abyss is just being shut out of the game. Already we can see a 2k gold lead amassing for the side of Mint, as their laners and their junglers. Oh, but you know, as I say that, I spoke too soon, as a nice little solo kill comes back for Slothballs. The wave of Korean Flamer just not in the right spot for them to be able to protect themselves against Akali's latest E. Krasbudo going to go in on top of Alpha Y 123, popping the ulti onto the Scion Q in the top side, but he is getting very low, is going to need that W, but he does get it up just in time as Alpha Y blew that flash. He is not going to be able to pick up Krasbudo with the zombie form. Alpha Pig's going to make his way into the play though. Krasbudo does have flash, but I don't think there's really anywhere for them to go. as surprisingly, Hardstuck and Sifra have both made their way onto the top side of the map here. We saw this rotation a lot more commonly last season when grubs were a much higher priority with things like feats of warfare being in the game, but more recently with support quests asking you to stay in lane for a little bit longer, and with grubs being just a little bit weaker, we've seen certainly supports moving to the grub play less often. And so a bit surprising to see both supports, both Enchantress supports, mind you, rolling up to this play, but nonetheless, both teams somewhat concerned with these grubs. But with the red team having recently lost Krasbudo, they're just going to concede this as a nice double E from Sifra lands on the Sloth Balls into mid lane. There's going to be no follow-up there as Korean Flamer does not have that Shockwave available. But as I was saying, Sifra is going to be able to make their way towards that bot lane a little bit faster than Hardstuck. But of course, the home guards for Hardstuck going to be able to make sure that they get back to Haunter rather quickly here. Though it might not be in time as Haunter steps on top of a Caitlyn trap and then takes an ace in the hole to the head. Sifra is going to be trying to finish off Haunter before the Melio is able to get over to shield them. And Sifra right now kind of gaming on the Seraphine. Didn't manage to land the Seraphine ultimate, but was able to land their key skills there just to be able to lock up a kill onto Haunter. And so for right now, Jinx is definitely going to be suffering quite a bit right now in the early stages of this one. Krasbudo very quickly making their way, I believe, towards the Bork, which is a reasonable option going into the Scion. The Scion going to be hitting that point very shortly with Tabbies and the Bramble Vest, where it's kind of hard for the Yone to be able to actually break through them. But top lane matchups like this are just such arms races. Who's going to hit those initial items first to be able to make themselves essentially immortal in the trades? Krasbudo doing a good job of so far skirting these Scion queues, getting themselves a little turret plate there, and then sliding away. Krasbudo, of course, has the teleport here, and once again, just really nice knowledge of this matchup, buffering the Scion ultimate with the Yone ultimate. Krasbudo's looking good as Idol is going to be able to find Hardstuck moving over to get the Phaelite ward. We're going to have another fight right here as Hardstuck stuck in the Cataclysm, which should go down soon, but it will not go down soon enough, and now Alpha Pig popping the Crescent Guard, trying to get away from the play. C9 Haunter dropping DPS into Idol, but this is a very weak Jinx right now. Not even a Yuntal Wild Arrows available to be able to help with the DPS. Sloth Balls, I do believe, TP down along with Korean Flamer, and definitely favorable for the red team to have both mid lanes show up here to solidify their winning play. 2 kills in the pocket of Sifra, and a 400 gold shutdown looking to be posted on Idol's name right now, having such effective early game right now with the Jarvan, really active on mid and bottom, and really recognizing that bottom is where he can really break this game wide open. Again, very risky, playing things like Jinx Melio into Caitlyn Seraphine, very powerful later, but you can put it down so far in the lane phase that it takes too long for it to come back in the game. Sifra, no summoner spells here, has to be a little bit careful, but is not going to be able to avoid those traps right there. Now Caitlyn is going to be looking to drop some damage, but Haunter finding the moment to be able to get a bounce back in the game right now, finds the shutdown onto Sifra as Krasbudo has no ultimate, is going to have to flash away. Isn't able to use that Q3 to be able to escape the gank, so it will be at least a favorable gank for Alpha Pig at the same time that both mid laners are investing their ultimates right here. Slothballs is just so aggressive right now in this 1v1, looking for any opportunity to go in on Korean Flamer. You can see how much damage Akali with Gunblade is able to do already at this stage of the game. And mind you, that's a Roa Orianna. This champion is typically so tanky that most things just like really can't kill it. But in this case, Slothballs is very threatening to Korean Flamer. And Korean Flamer, now not having any flash, has to be pretty careful of Alpha Pig just rolling up and looking for a kill on them. As Krasbudo is going to probably not look for a kill, but look for a little bit of harass with Alpha Y as they whiff a little bit on that Yone ultimate. What's our next objective? 2 minutes on the dragon. So far, only 1 taken this game, of course. All 3 of the grubbies going over to the side of a Rising Tide Abyss. Grubs can be quite good. It's sort of conditional to what your side lanes are going to look like either. But, you know, the thing about the turrets these days is that the turrets, the first couple of plates are very squishy, but that last plate does take a lot of effort to bring down, and if you have grubbies, the true damage onto that last turret plate definitely does pay off. Caitlyn continuing to step up, looking for pressure down here. Alpha Pig wanting to help out his struggling bot lane, though Hanser does finally have those Yuntal wild arrows in their inventory. You're seeing a lot of this recent phenomenon where both junglers are just chilling on bot side at the same time, one looking for a counter gank while the other one's also looking for a counter gank. Caitlyn here obviously has the freedom to be able to just harass the turret as they are able to land a combo and a hard stuck. Caitlyn's is going to be on a trap as Hanser walks forward with a shield. Korean Flamer is also going to be here to influence the matchup. Akali instead deciding to walk towards that top side, so probably good for the likes of Rising Tide Abyss that no action was kicked off here, though Idol is investing so much time to try to find a play here. It just seems like Hanser and Hardstuck are aware that there's kind of something going on here, but the thing is that as long as Idol is able to just continue to sit here, it allows the Caitlyn and Seraphine to just consistently look for turret pressure that Hanser and Hardstuck can do nothing about unless they commit. And if they commit, there you go. Idol just goes in. Hardstuck now going to be putting the Cataclysm and tank an ace in the hole to the head once again. And now Idol is going to start wrapping around looking for that follow-up play. But instead, all three of the red team members are just going to secure the first turret of the game, as you so often do with Caitlyn. Going to be interesting now to see where does the Caitlyn allocate herself most often when you have a snowballing Caitlyn lane. You get the luxury of choosing what terms the game is going to be played on, but for right now, it has actually just been the likes of Alpha Pig who have been able to conquer the top set objectives, the Grubs and the Herald both going in their pocket for the moment, though once again Slothballs is also going to be going in. Drops kind of a bad ultimate onto Korean Flamer, and yeah, that's a bit of an Akali misplay right there as they try to get back outside of the turret range. It is not going to be able to do so with the second part of that lethal execution. They're going to get Shockwave back into the turret and taken down as all of a sudden now this monstrous Caitlyn, who's working her way towards those Berserker's Greaves and that Infinity Edge, has decided to allocate mid. Definitely a game where it feels that Ship of Theseus is well in control of the match, though the thing that could swing the early game for right now is whatever Alpha Pig decides to ultimately do with this Rift Herald. You can see Korean Flamer is going to try to hold off Hanser and Hardstuck for as long as possible. Sometimes something that happens when you swap your bot lane out of bottom as the winning side is that you don't get to pressure the rest of the map as hard as you'd like to, and then your mid laner gets left into 2v1 and allows the opposing bot lane to sort of catch up in the game. So a little gold check right here. The Jinx is really only like 500 gold behind the Caitlyn. So in spite of the fact that Jinx was getting smashed in lane, you know, they're really not that far behind. You know, just one play, just one swing, all of a sudden puts this Jinx in a position where she's able to start really meaningfully contributing in team fights once again. In all this dynamic, definitely VR Slothballs is going to be getting the worst of all of it, as they are going to go in right now. They do have their ultimate once again, and that's just such a crazy amount of damage right there. Caitlyn just walking forward into Akali's E, has both summoners up. Sifra has the ultimate, but no one invests anything because everyone is just stun locked by the fact that Akali does so much damage. Upgraded mid lane boots as well as that level 2 ultimate for Akali just means that she absolutely one-shots Caitlyn if she gets caught by an E. And that's really going to slow down the momentum of Ship of Theseus this game. Really good play by Slothballs, who's had a little bit of really good plays and a little bit of really horrible plays this game. But, you know, you have to respect somebody who just continues to go for it no matter what the outcome of the previous play was. Krasbudo able to finally crack that top lane turret from Alpha Y. The Yone quietly having a very good game for himself, but the Scion is looking to change that condition as Sifra is going to, as Sifra's going to flash away right there. We'll have to see if that actually becomes consequential. Alpha Y decided not to hard commit for that mid play. TP back topside, match Krasbudo. Krasbudo, not wanting too much smoke, is just going to go ahead and ult away and reset probably onto the opposite side of the map. Caitlyn, all of a sudden, very afraid as they realize just how squishy they are. Though you can see Caitlyn just dropping one neat little auto attack onto those crystals means that that turret is not long for this world. You can see the Yone flipping the map right here. I do believe the Yone was able to get like 1 or 2 auto attacks on that top tier 2 turret, and you can see it just lost both of its plates. So there's a lot of value and a lot of merit to just finding that crystal proc on one side of the map and then resetting and then running to the opposite side of the map with those home guards and then looking to try to push in and get another crystal proc. It's one of my favorite things about this new version of League of Legends this season, as it just feels like there's a much more dynamic situation as far as the side laning goes. Krasbudo probably going to take these ones right here as they do land the initial couple of spells onto VR Slothball's. Alpha Pig is going to be making their way over as Krasbudo does get hit by Slothball's E. You can see how much damage once again the Akali is doing. One more proc of the ulti would kill Krasbudo, but Krasbudo is able to get out at the same time that the Jarvan goes in. Krasbudo once again going to get hit by the E, outplaying Krasbudo completely on the side lane, though Korean Flamer and Idol are going to blow both ultimates, try to finish off Slothball. Slothballs is going to get healed and shielded up and is going to be able to not survive just barely. Korean Flamer now, no flash, no ultimate, will of course be going down as Haunter is going to collect another shutdown for themselves this game. Idol and Sifra are just going to have to watch the blue team disengage for the moment as Mintship Theseus might be in control, but that control is starting to slowly slip away right now as the Abyss is beginning to close in around them. The Rift Herald now prepared to be able to go for another charge as Idol is going to get knocked up by Alpha Pig. Sifra's going to have a terrible Seraphine ultimate right there. He's going to root up the Xin Zhao, but it shouldn't matter too much as that Herald is of course going to be able to get that crash. There's going to have another TP behind the blue team as Krasbudo does have that Yone ultimate available and is level 14, could be very threatening to everybody who's remaining on the side of the Abyss. Krasbudo is going to be able to find Haunter and scoops up Hardstuck in the process. A really beautiful Yone ultimate as Idol is going to be able to dominate their way onto Jinx and finish them off. Hardstuck also going to go down. I feel like Slothballs has no cooldown on the Akali ultimate, who already has that back up again and available, but you have to feel with the Scion isolated all by themselves on top side. This is going to be the third dragon of the game going over to the side of Mintship Theseus. Definitely a big swing right there with Krasbudo's ultimate. Felt like it was one of those moments that could be determining as far as the ability for Rising Tide Abyss to be able to turn the game back in their favor, but Krasbudo wretched that comeback away from them as he dropped the unsealed, or the sealed fate. What is this again? Yeah, the fate sealed, right, onto Haunter and Hardstuck. Game is still far from over though, as Haunter is going to continue to be an ever-growing threat in the background of this game. Sifra building, what I've been seeing is one of the more interesting support setups for this season. All of your damage converting into healing for the rest of your team as you deal it. Definitely a good setup for someone like Seraphine, who is not truly a pure utility champion and is not truly a mage when she's on that support role. So I definitely think Riot fleshing out a little bit more to the support item system with some of the changes to Echoes of Helia as well as the tier support item. Melio going for a very similar setup, though you can see there's no tier in Melio's inventory. One of the things about Enchanters this season is that, for those of you that don't know, the support quest has basically doubled the amount of gold that a support gets per 10 seconds. It went from 5 to 4, so it's not quite double, of course, but it's just a lot more income for supports, and supports that love income are, of course, Enchanters. When they're able to round out a late game Enchanter build with something like Dawn Core, you know, their heal shield power just gets So ridiculous. They never run out of mana, and they create so much effective HP and damage for whatever carry they're buffing up, or in the case of someone like Seraphine, buffing up literally everybody with the press of the W. Krasbudo and VR Slothballs once again slotted here on the side lane, though Krasbudo is looking much more respectful of VR Slothballs this time, recognizing that Slothballs did land a couple of nice E's onto Krasbudo last time they were taking that 1v1. Sifra and Idol now looking for the play on a Haunter. Haunter has no flash, and you know it is really just that easy. When you're playing Jinx into Jarvan, if you have no flash, you're as good as dead whenever that Jarvan wants ya. And in this case, that is definitely going to, once again, be the case. Idol is going to be looking to pick up the Scuttle Crab, though I don't think the blue team in the fog wants to smoke. VR Slothballs is going to prove me wrong, as they are going to go in, but not get enough initial damage on a Sifra or Idol to be able to actually make it worthwhile. Krasbudo now could consider going in. I definitely think he should. A wonderful Blast Cone from Slothball is going to mess up Krasbudo's Fate Sealed. Idol is going to go in now, and is going to be in the middle of the Crescent Guard at the same time that Slothballs is going to be in the Shroud, but it's not going to do too much because the Akali's ultimate is already down. Hardstuck now just going to get isolated and caught out by the Orianna Shockwave. And that was just kind of a free play for the red team, as the Jinx had not spawned yet, and Slothballs kind of didn't have an optimal Akali ultimate. Like I said with this guy, a little bit of great and a little bit of not so great as far as Slothballs goes. The concern for the blue team now is whether or not the red team actually can rip this Baron. You can kind of get this objective done a lot earlier in the game than a lot of people think, because Slothballs is just going to step up to Idol. Idol is going to say much obliged and just take the engage. Caitlyn does get hit by an Akali E though, but is Slothballs crazy enough to take it? It looks like no. Idol's going to flag and drag in and then flash back out again as Haunter is trying to ramp up that lethal tempo. Is going to need several autos to finish off Idol, who is able to get out of the play, and you can see how much healing is coming through from that Seraphine. Alpha Y is very tanky, but everybody on the side of the red team is very healthy. As the Seraphine ultimate goes wide, Idol is once again going to be disengaged from by Slothballs as the Baron looms large on the side. The Krasbudo continues to beat down the side lane tier 2 and collect that money for themselves. Idol is continuing to hunt and continuing to fish. Akali is dropping E's but just needs to get out. The dragon is spawning in 15 seconds and someone has to stop the Yone. Alpha Y is that person. However, Krasbudo now, once again, looking for round 2 with the Fate Sealed. Maybe wants to try to scoop up this Jinx, and in fact, yes, Jinx is just going to die immediately after spawning. It is so hard to be an AD carry in this meta sometimes when you have no mobility. There are so many things that can just jump on you and kill you at any moment's notice if you miss position at all. Idol now going to go back in with the Cataclysm and trap 2 people inside. The Shockwave is going to also follow up on top of it. Alpha Pig having to flash away at the same time that Alpha Y is going to have to also walk away. Slothballs wants to be able to fight, but they're basically in a functional 1v5 right now as Korean Flamer zones off the rest of the team. Idol is going to knock up Slothballs. Krasbudo probably not going to be able to finish off this play. And now the Dragon has been started, as this is going to be a very fast soul for the red team should this actually be secured. Alpha Y is trying to step in as Alpha Pig is going to go for broke right here. Is going to smite it down to 72 HP, and the soul will be secured by the side of Mint ship Theseus. Hex soul already done, perfectly leveraging that Caitlyn Sifra lane to its fullest potential, securing every single dragon and being able to secure the soul in 27 minutes. And now with Alpha Pig having sold themselves out right there, just trying to secure that dragon, keep the soul away from the clutches of Mint, is now going to just have to watch from the death chamber as they are going to start up this Baron. I don't know if the blue team is going to be able to marshal a defense on this thing. The Baron is already dead, but can they win the ensuing team fight now? Slothballs is within an inch of their life as they flash away over the wall. Krasbudo will be able to finish them off right here. Haunter wants to be able to play the fight, but Idol just ulting on cooldown, trapping this Jinx and making it impossible to play. The Seraphine ultimate almost catching onto Hardstuck as they are able to flash away, but it is in vain as the tank and the support are the only things left. There's no more damage to be able to be contributed now as Mint continues to pressure in the game, pushing in mid and pushing in top lane. Look at this. Bang. Crystals. We love it. So satisfying. Feels like it's so easy to progress a game of League of Legends now, and I do actually prefer that quite a bit to the old mode where it felt like there was just so much downtime. Krasbudo also just being so freaking obnoxious here. Going to tank a knockup from Alpha Y, but it will not matter all that much. The red team, Mint, continuing to pressure into the base, will finally crack it wide open with that mid-tier 3 going down. Krasbudo continues to pressure on top side, but signals to the team that it's time for everyone to take a base and spend your gold. Of course, it is a massive 9k gold lead for the side of Mint's ship of Theseus, and all of a sudden it's becoming very unlikely that the side of Rising Tide Abyss will be able to come back into this one. Good stuff from Mint so far, as we've definitely seen how they were able to handle the early game. Had a couple of mid-game fumbles, but after bouncing back from those fumbles, immediately took control of the game again. We're just going to have to see how effectively they can close the game out. With having that Baron as well as the Soul, you have to think that the game should not last too much longer, because Krasbudo is going to find the knockup on a Sloth Balls. Haunter's going to once again die on mid, presumably to that Cataclysm Shockwave combo. I mean, wash, rinse, repeat, wax on, wax off. It is just that easy and that fundamental. Right now, Mint is just showing that they know exactly what to do, and right now the only thing left on their agenda is taking out these Nexus turrets and moving on to the Nexus. Krasbudo making his way in as Sifra's ultimate does land true and find 2. Alpha Y is gonna just cry out cowards and try to charge his way back into the fountain, but it's going to be in vain, as they once again will be turned into their zombie form for the second time of this game, and that's going to be Mint, ship of Theseus, able to take the first game in our fearless best of 5. Very dominant performance, I would say, from Mint that game. Several times it looked like it might be a complete shutout. But, you know, Rising Tide Abyss definitely has a good opportunity to bounce back here. We saw yesterday what looked like it was a very dominant game 1. Really ended up becoming a very long and drawn-out series. So, going to be interested to see what Rising Tide Abyss has in store for adaptations going into our game 2. I'll show us a very brief post game right here, as both of our teams are going to be getting themselves ready for our second game of the series. Please ignore the dogs, as they're not supposed to be here anymore. But that is Ziggs and Pike, the 2 wonderful little canines that belong to the owner of the entire tournament, Metashift. Glancing over at our damage charts, the only thing that really matters in the end, right? Krasbudo, of course, topping the damage charts, having whacked on that Scion for the entirety of that game. But I really like that game. A lot of side laning transitioning into team fighting. It just kind of seemed like picking the Jinx did not pay off overall for Rising Tide Abyss. That was the big moral of the story. But I'm going to go ahead and get us set up for game 2, and I'll be right back with you guys. Thank you very much. Alright, welcome back. Meta shift to game 2 between Rising Tide Abyss and Mint ship Theseus. Sorry about any confusion in that first draft. I did have the logo swapped, so might have been a bit misleading as to which team was drafting which champions. I do have that rectified for this, though, and Mint ship Theseus will, in fact, be on the red side. Yesterday, we saw both noble teams opting to go for red side every opportunity they had to choose to... every opportunity they had to choose it. This game, interesting to see that Rising Tide Abyss does decide to go for that blue side. Usually that indicates there is something that you really want to pick first. In this case, Rising Tide Abyss is going to go ahead and grab up that Smolder. I think that a lot of these bans are reflective of the same thing as the previous game. The difference being Lilia and Gwen continue to be banned, but Xayah is new. Xayah is interesting because the champion has definitely gained some recent popularity as a champion that seems to be a little bit stronger with the new items and the increase in the amount of crit damage in the game. But I still don't personally believe that Xayah is something you want just in a generic draft. I do still think this champion is something you want when you see a specific set of champions drafted on the opposing team. With that being said, Smolder is a lot more generic, just very strong, very consistent. Rising Tide Abyss did decide to go for the Jinx last game. You know, the thing is, Jinx isn't weak. It was just kind of a weak Jinx spot. And they tried to force it. It didn't work. Smolder's a little more flexible than Jinx. But still, they might still be building a very similar identity. We'll have to see if they're able to pilot a very similar composition this game to greater effectiveness than they displayed in the first game. On the side of Mint, getting rid of that Viego and Wukong continues to be a priority, and continuing to remove Sivir from the pool also continues to be a priority. All reasonable bans for the same reasons that we were talking about them in the first draft. Mint going to go for the Yunara. Yunara is an interesting case because her win rates are terrible right now, but I swear this champion is not weak. She just needs experience and a team composition to be able to enable her the way she needs to be enabled. Of course, there is the new Fiend Hunter Bolts item, which gives good stats during your ultimate. It gives you guaranteed crits, and it also gives you ultimate haste. So basically a perfect Yunara item. She also is quite good with the Yuntal Wild Arrow. So Yunara definitely looking pretty good in my estimation, in spite of what her numbers look like. So excited to see that going. Galio is also one of the champions I think has been very impressive recently. Wonderful into any AP champion. In this case, when you pick Galio on B2, sorry, that's not B2, that's R2. When you pick Galio in the spot though, Galio is like mid-top jungle support flexible in reality. So Galio is like a giga flex pick. You can put him in so many different places and he still continues to function. So I think this champion is just, you know, an anchor for any draft where you want somebody of his champion archetype. In mid lane, he's like so consistent and strong into mages. And what you obviously see with the way that the game is playing right now, you side lane and then you pinch, or you side lane and base and move. And Galio is so good at doing that. He finds a 1 proc on a side lane turret, he takes a home guard base, and he's just omnipresent on the map with his ultimate. It's so nice. Or he just pinches into fog, runs directly mid, finds an engage with his EW. Sorry, just love this champion. In any case, what's interesting is that after picking Yunara Galio, Rising Tide Abyss did decide to go for Karma and Aurelion Soul. Karma is surprising because it is not the strongest enchanter on the patch, nor does it counter all of the engage supports particularly well. What it does do is help crutch Smolder through some difficult matchups, but you don't really know if it's a difficult matchup or not until you see the opposing support pick. So I do have to feel that the Karma is a bit of an odd pick. A-Soul is interesting because apparently A-Soul is quite strong right now, but haven't seen him in quite some time. I haven't seen him in any of my games, so I'm curious to see how A-Soul does in this game, but I've heard he's doing great things, but he is still into a Galio. And so Galio, I think, is going to be able to have plenty of prio, is going to have no problems managing an Aurelion Soul, and might be very active on the map. And so the question is a scaling Aurelion Soul Smolder composition enough to outpace the activity level that a Galio can create? After the Aurelion Soul, the Malphite being picked up, since the patch before the new season, Malphite has been looking really strong in the jungle, being able to go for that Sunfire. Yesterday, we saw some tech. The jungler for our winning squad, hold on, decided to go Bandle Pipes Malphite into a Zeke's Herald. And this guy had just Malphite ultimate whenever he wanted to. He was just a aura of attack speed for the entirety of his team. And the Malphite was looking very effective. So even without the Sunfire Cape, this champion continues to look pretty strong. The new jungle that Riot has basically put into the game, with everything dealing less damage, has made jungle champion diversity so wide. You can put so many weird things in the jungle these days. Malphite used to be one of these champions that didn't get picked because he was only a top laner, and you had to find specific spots where you could counter pick with Malphite. Now you just throw him in the jungle, you pick support items on him, he just has permanent value, and he's always in engaged condition, especially onto immobile carries. Like, this ASOL, this game is going to have a hard time with this Malphite. And Smolder to a degree as well, and like this Karma's dead on cooldown. So I think this Malphite champion is also very strong. After both teams have selected the first 3 champions, we can obviously see that Rising Tide Abyss is going to pick up both of these hyper-scaling mid and bot laners, and is going to be able to be enchanted up by this Karma, who's going to be able to buy some of those new freshly tuned support items. On the side of Mint ship Theseus, Yunara is also going to offer that scaling threat next to the Smolder. The Galio, again, wants that high level of activity, usually signals that you want to be able to have a very strong side laner, which they, of course, did pick up later in the draft. And the Malphite is going to be a consistent engage condition, which I think almost every draft wants these days in order to be able to be most effective. Following up, the Camille ban is, of course, something that Rising Tide Abyss decided to remove in their second rotation of bans because the Camille Galio combination is so strong. They also know that they're going to be giving up red side counter pick to Mint ship Theseus, and so if they know they want the Ornn, they don't want Mint to be able to pick the Camille. So that's obviously a very good ban. And the Lulu is going to be something that is a replicated ban from the first draft. This champion is, of course, very powerful with Yunara, giving her the move speed that Yunara needs to really stick to you, as well as give her enough HP to be able to soak up some of the AoE damage that is already starting to be presented by Rising Tide Abyss. Bans for Mint ship Theseus. One of the most quintessential bans whenever you're going to be having a Malphite on your team is banning away the Sylas so that he can't take it away himself. Sylas, of course, is also very good with Galio ultimate, as well as if you know you're going to be picking an engaged support, Sylas tends to excel with all of those spells quite a bit as well. The Trundle, just something that I think is kind of a specific counter pick to the Malphite. I haven't seen it a lot recently, but I can imagine it'd be a pretty effective pick for being able to bully that Malphite wherever he goes. Also very good at being able to bully things like the Galio. So I think Mint's second round bans looking fundamental and sharp. Of course, they did decide to go for that Nautilus after those second round of bans right there. I think Nautilus is kind of unnecessary here. By the time you have a Malphite and a Galio on your team, you probably don't need to have a third primary or supplementary engage option like the Nautilus. I think there's probably room to be able to find something a little bit more creative for Sifra to play this game. But it is going to, just be the Nautilus trying to create an opportunity for their team to be able to fight in the lane phase. It is probably just simply the approach that Mint wants to have, seeing something like the Karma Smolder being picked up by Rising Tide Abyss. And we did see in the last game how much 3v3 mattered. That was one of the most interesting takeaways for me following that first game. There was really only one 2v2 skirmish mid, and after that, everything was so bot side focused. It does definitely seem like having that engaged support around bot lane might be extremely valuable should that trend continue to be true. And for Rising Tide Abyss, following up that Nautilus pick, picking the Ornn as something that can be this consistent engage condition out of top lane, as well as the fact that it perfectly synergizes with the scaling condition of Smolder and Aurelion Soul. The problem being when you're picking Ornn in a spot like this, all three of your lanes are basically scaling, and so you don't really have any reasonable pressure points to be able to do anything proactive in the game, which oftentimes is a recipe for disaster. But we'll have to see if Rising Tide Abyss is able to pilot what is a very fragile early game comp into that point in the game where they do just completely take over against a composition that doesn't scale as hard as they do. And they do round out their draft with one of the strongest assassins of the patch. I do believe Zed is also slated for quite a few nerfs because he's just been a little bit too strong with the new Umbral Glaive in the jungle role. Should just have basically one target this game, being the Yunara. If that Yunara is eliminated from a play, then Galio, Malphite, and Nautilus will eventually just simply go down to things like the Smolder and the Aurelion Soul. However, all that being said, I think the most important piece of this entire draft is certainly the R5 of Mint Ship of Theseus. Picking the Kale here is just so smart. It's a very powerful champion here, given the new items put into the game. It fixes your DPS problems. It has a great matchup into the Ornn. It matches the scaling of Aurelion Soul and Smolder, as well as the fact that her ultimate completely counters Zed. So I honestly think all by itself, this R5 pick by Mint Ship of Theseus might have broken this draft and the subsequent game wide open. It does remain to be seen, as a champion does need a proper piloting to be able to make use of its full power. But given what I'm seeing right now, I think Mint Ship of Theseus have definitely positioned themselves to have a good advantage going into this game too. I'm going to do a little bit of check on my Twitch chat as we are now entering our spectator delay for game 2. Okay, guys, and with all that out of the way, I am going to take a quick break, and as soon as we are done with our spectator delay, I'll be right back with the cast. Alright, ladies and gents, welcome back to the cast. Already Slothballs is breathing all over Korean Flamer. I hate watching the way that Asol plays. It just seems so goofy when he's just breathing on you, standing in place and killing you. But his design is what it is, as we are going to get the classic 3 scaling lanes from the side of Rising Tide Abyss. We'll have to see if them being able to, brave the storm of the early game of Mint Ship Theseus will be enough to be able to bring them their first win of the series and be able to even things up. Or if Mint Ship Theseus will continue their momentum, snowballing through this game and then eventually able to pressure game point going into the rest of our series. But for now, Sifra landing a nice little sniper onto C9 Hanser, who has to heal away with Hard Stuck immediately. We're going to have the Glacial Augment onto Sifra, which is going to add to the potency of that Nautilus engage. You typically go for the Glacial Augment when you're not concerned about a lot of front-loaded damage coming back in on you as the Nautilus. This is definitely one of those situations, as not having the Aftershock will not be particularly consequential for them, as, Smolder Karma is not the scariest thing ever. Both junglers pathing up towards this top side. It could be a very quiet Ornn Kayle lane, or it could end up becoming a very hectic top lane. Korean Flamer going to go in on the Slothballs, is going to be able to find almost 2 procs of the Galio passive onto the Asol, but decided to use the second one on the wave instead. One of the reasons why Asol is said to be very strong at the moment is just because champions that like to take very frequent recalls or tend to have kind of weak early games and therefore prefer to take a lot of recalls are just very heavily advantaged by the new home guards. So say Asol just runs out of mana. Even taking a bad base feels a lot less punishing than it used to. This, of course, just allows scaling champions to be able to survive a little bit better through the early game. Sounds a little counterintuitive that scaling champions might be good right now because there's so much action, but also, there's so much more income in the game. A lot of these scaling champions are able to hit their breakpoints at an earlier minute than they used to be able to. With all these things being considered, Asol, generally supposed to be a pretty strong champion, but it's my first time watching him in quite some time. Idle now, looking to try to make a play right here, but it will rely on Sifra able to land the hook, and they are just going to whiff it completely. Gonna make that look like a perpendicular hook to the direction that their opponents were walking. Sifra may be better, they didn't land it, I suppose, since the Zed was there, but ultimately just kind of a misfire as Sifra initially flashed in correctly. Slothballs is just going to go ahead and slide away from Korean Flamer, kind of pounding the dragon down. Yeah, Slothballs, although able to take bad bases and not be as punished, still not going to be particularly happy about having to burn their TP this early. You can see the Asol just picking up an Amp Tome and a Ruby Crystal. Refill Pot is now just going to be having to stomach being a little bit far behind the Galio. And I say far behind, I mean, it's really a marginal difference as the Nautilus hooks back in. Asteria is going to be fighting against Hanser right here and pop the barrier after Hanser, so they should win, flashing in after the Smolder. Both AD carries are simply standing and autoing. As Asteria, do you have Triumph? You cheeky man. That was well played by Asteria, who was able to get the heal off the Smolder, having barely more attack speed. Honestly, just a lethal tempo difference right there. Hanser, having the fleet footwork, was not able to get the auto attack off faster than Asteria, and the side of Rising Tide Abyss going to go for broke right there, trying to kill the bot lane of Mint Ship Theseus, but is going to get so punished for it. You have to question the judgment of going for a play like that when you are in a draft that really relies on basically nothing happening. Going for something that is a high variance play, even if you think that you're going to win it in like close odds, just sometimes is not worth it, because you want to decrease the amount of action in the game wherever possible. And so there, Haunter and Hardstuck investing so many resources, now as a wave is pushing away from them, are going to open themselves up to the possibility of Idol coming down here for a play. Malphite will be level 6 before too long, and Sifra, of course, wants to be able to have another crack at landing a hook. Alpha Pig's going to start this dragon, but I don't think they're going to be able to finish it in time. Slothballs is here with their ultimate as Galio lands a taunt. Haunter stuck over the wall, no flash. I don't know what Asol is going to be able to do here. Does land a stun onto Sifra, but there's not really a lot of damage coming through for the blue team right here. Asteria is just going to waltz into the pit and start clicking on heads right here. Alpha Pig not being level 6 just, I guess, baits the entire team into this dragon fight. Guys, again, I just have to say it, and I'm not trying to be too toxic. When you have 3 scaling lanes, why are we contesting the first dragon of the game? It is the most easy and free dragon to just give away. You're not level 6 on the Zed. You don't have big ultimate from the Aurelion Soul. Just why? Just why? Not a wise thing to do when you could just be trying to hit your breakpoints through lane phase. VR Slothball is going to continue to try to farm up his stacks on the mid lane. He, of course, has not been the one that's died yet, but, you know, the whole point is that the whole team needs to be on the same page. And for right now, Rising Tide Abyss needs to get their head on straight if they're going to be able to win this game. Double checking my microphone status right here while we have a little break in the action. Yeah, I'm good. I'm good. Oh. I have a feeling things are going to quiet down quite a bit right now. As after taking a couple of beatings, you probably just say in comms like, guys, let's calm down, let's slow down the game, let's just focus on scaling, let's not give away any more kills here. You just have to hope that the damage is not already done as Korean Flamer continues to assert himself on this mid lane. Idol is now going to find Alpha Pig farming in their jungle. The Grubbies have spawned now. Sifra and Korean Flamer are here. Unlike the previous game, where I kind of questioned both enchanters going up towards topside, I do like Sifra actually moving to this play when you are the early game team. Ooh, very near miss for Alpha Pig as well on that Grubby. Really, this season, getting all 3 is not nearly as impactful as previously. Of course, when you have 3, you do get those 2 Grubby spawns, which can be really impactful at times. But, you know, being able to take all 3 again just doesn't matter the same way as it did when you wanted Feats of Warfare. But when you have, anyway, when you want the Nautilus moving up is when you are the early game team and you really do want to be able to contest every objective possible. It's good to move your supports still. I just think that enchanter supports tend to want to focus on lane a little bit more and really want to finish off that support quest as soon as possible, as their income actually becomes very important, as they do want to be able to have that 9 gold per second increase. It does make a really big difference in their ability to be able to finish off core items. Sifra now going to try to go for another play here onto Haunter, as Asteria is going to be able to snipe out Haunter, who's trying to get away from the play. You can see the Unara ultimate doing so much for the side of Asteria and the rest of Mint. Right now, Mint is making this game look like a repeat of the last one. Asteria and the rest of Mint just getting out to a very early gold lead. I feel like it was kind of rare in previous seasons where you would see like an... Sorry, I had to mute right there. There's a vacuum cleaner coming into my room. Sorry, it's just, it kind of felt rare last season when you would see like a 2k gold lead at 10 minutes. That used to kind of mean like the game was getting really quickly out of hand in a really unusual way. But this game instead, it feels like there's a little bit more play in what your gold leads are going to actually look like. Green Flamer is going to pick up a turret plate right there. I just like this so much, the fact that if you're having yourself a good lane phase, there's more ways to be able to actually just punish a scaling laner just chilling out underneath their turret. Idol is going to be able to also do the same thing. Slothballs is going to go down as Korean Flamer and Idol both invest their ultimates. Actually, probably did matter that you invested your Galio ultimate there. That magic damage shield looked like it was quite impactful. Haunter is trying to find a kill back here, but Idol's shield from their passive comes up just in time, and Haunter is, of course, a very anemic little dragon. Alpha Pig maybe looking for an ultimate onto Galio, does not decide to pull the trigger. Thought that might have been a good opportunity for Alpha Pig to try to go for a kill, but decided that it was not going to happen there, not quite having the items necessary to be able to actually kill Korean Flamer. 7 seconds to the dragon spawn. You have to imagine that the side of Rising Tide Abyss has to conclude that there's really not a lot to be done here so far. Also interesting to be looking over to the Aesol and seeing them rush a Leandri's Torment. There is, of course, a lot of HP on the opposing team, but I thought the champion needed mana. But maybe not, as Sifra is going to go in right here. The taunt is going to land onto Alpha Pig. Alpha Pig getting very low, but Sifra, of course, is going to get lower and hit 0 and beyond and die for the first time of Mint Ship Theseus. And that's going to be the first kill of the game. Finally, Rising Tide Abyss is on the board. Alpha Pig doing a good job of outplaying right there after being initially CC'd. You can see one of the only issues with this composition so far is that there's just very little damage. It was just a full tank Galio and a full tank Malphite starting that play out onto that Zed. And, you know, when Asteria or Krasbudo are not in position to be able to follow up on the play, just not going to be able to very easily kill even very squishy targets. The red team very easily going to secure this second dragon for themselves. Going to be having a Chemtech Rift coming through. The Chem plants bloom. Asteria just running forward as Sifra lines up. The hook is going to be able to hit Hardstuck, and Hardstuck is not going to be long for this world. Asteria just getting that Yunara Q and just going to town on that Karma. Zed wants to be able to try to find a follow-up play, but Alpha Pig not having their Zed ultimate just yet means it's probably not going to happen. You can see Slothballs kind of wanted to go for a play onto Krasbudo on top side to try to disrupt this Kale scaling, but just getting caught out by that pink ward that was being used to secure those grubbies earlier just means that there's just no play to be had. I think that's the scary thing. I mean, yes, of course, Smolder and Ornn and Smolder scaled. I say Smolder twice. Ornn, Aesol, Smolder scale. But Krasbudo on this Kale is looking just alright. Already has the Nashers, has those Swifties, under no real threat of dying to Alpha Y. Gonna be able to start working into that Dusk and Dawn and Rageblade and just become an absolute unit in the side lanes to deal with. Idol's moving in behind Krasbudo here, which is a little bit surprising. You see, Haunter doesn't even really have enough attack damage to be able to farm minions underneath their turret, and doesn't even have enough HP to be able to survive a Nautilus hook underneath their own turret. Asteria is just dealing so much damn damage right now. Just every single time Haunter gets hooked, just Asteria is just, excuse me, completely one-shotting them. Korean Flamer is going to try to get out of here, and will be able to do so with the flash. That's a very bad investment of the Aesol ultimate, especially considering you know that Galio has flash, but you can sense it. You know, Rising Tide Abyss is just starting to get pretty desperate here. As, you know, if you're calm and in control, you don't invest your Aesol ultimate like that, but that is not the situation that we're in right now. Alpha Pig now going to start getting ran down by Idol, who is just a tank beating down that Zed. Slothballs is trying to help, lamenting the fact that they no longer have their ultimate. And now Alpha Pig is going to barely deal any damage to Idol, who is just going to tank up that Zed ultimate with ease. Korean Flamer, having finished off those mid lane tier 1 boots, or those mid lane boots, just has such a massive magic shield and is going to be able to get Slothball's flash, and that's just another big win for the Galio. That's another reason I forgot to mention that this champion just feels so ridiculous right now. When Galio is able to finish off those upgraded Merc Treads with their mid lane quest, as well as having this Hollow Radiance, they just look like they're completely immortal and take no magic damage at all whatsoever. The early magic damage shield is just so incredibly oppressive. As Krasbudo continues to also be oppressive, just taking away another turret plate on that top side. Alpha Y just desperately trying to keep up with the scaling of the game. Down, like, look, see, the Kayle has 1 kill, and the Kayle is just casually up, like, 1.5k. That's the kind of game that it is right now. Like, this Kayle is just scaling harder and faster than the Ornn can keep up with, as well as Slothballs and Haunter, for that matter. Also, having these 3 grubs as Kayle is so nice. Oftentimes, Ornn is just kind of chilling underneath this turret, absorbing your pressure. But again, in previous seasons, you know, just like try not to lose a whole turret. This season, not the same thing. Kayle with those 3 grubs can just walk up, get that crystal proc, tap the Ornn a little bit, feel very good about winning their lane phase. Side of C9 Haunter does get a brief reprieve as they are laning against a Galio. They should be able to at least be able to find their stacks against the Galio in the side lane, as Galio, of course, does not want to be matching an 80 carry, however weak, majority of the game. Particularly when the Galio is building the Hollow Radiance as opposed to any sort of AP items. Asteria deciding to say, you want to breathe on me? Well, I might just throw my orbs at you. And they will be able to get that done. Does Asteria die, though? With the barrier, Asteria does manage to live, as Galio also ults on top of Asteria to make sure that they don't die to anything. And Asteria was like a pixel away from that turret range. But unfortunately for the side of Rising Tide Abyss, it is just not going to be enough for them to be able to actually find a kill there. It would have been massive to be able to find 450 gold onto the Asol. Unfortunately, the barrier plus the Galio ultimate was enough to make sure that Asteria did remain standing, just barely. And that's going to be a nice little Herald play for the rest of the boys, running that Herald into the mid-tier 2 of Rising Tide Abyss. And they're going to make themselves a nice little transition over here towards the dragon. Krasbudo, of course, could always consider TPing in, but with the fact that Alpha Pig just walked into their doom, I don't think the Kayle is too interested in doing anything other than continuing to sit on side lane. And this is the other thing. Maybe I just don't remember, but I just don't remember top laners being level 14 at 18 minutes. It just, like, this Kayle is, like, just so close to already proccing level 16. It just feels like it's a little faster than I remember, that's all. Idle now going to go forward with the rest of the boys, as Asteria is also going to continue fighting whenever they can. Ultimate has been procced once again because of those Fiend Hunter bolts inside of her inventory. Not going to have range onto Haunter, but Haunter's also not going to have range onto Idle, as they are just going to walk away from the play. The Shamrock Malphite is going to have his lucky day, but Sifra is not, as they're not going to be able to find the CC before dying, but Korean Flamer is going to taunt up that Smolder. Alpha Pig, though, has the chance to be able to secure Asteria here. Will certainly be able to do so with a little bit of in and out, take a little bit of a massive shutdown for themselves onto the enemy AD carry. The question is whether the Zed will be able to continue to find such picks. My suspicion is not, especially once Krasbudo starts getting involved in the play. But for the moment, there's at least a little bit of an influx of gold for Rising Tide Abyss, as the game is already well and truly out of control. 6k gold lead, 3 dragons, 3 grubs, and 1 herald. It's just an absolute dog walk of a game right now. The only thing so far that Rising Tide Abyss has been able to secure is that bot lane tier 1, as Smolder had some free time to be able to farm up while the rest of the game was playing out. But, you know, the rest of those turrets are looking borderline immaculate for the side of Mint Ship Theseus. I'm going to check on this top lane turret. Yeah, you know, like 1 plate, which is sort of inevitable on that mid and top lane turret. Excuse me. I mean, heck, they have 3 players who haven't even died this game. So they're looking about as clean as you can make it look right now. I'm always also curious about this. This seems like it should be the season where teams should be able to rip the Baron pretty early. I feel like the Otacon has conditioned us to look for an objective at 20 minutes. And now the only option is really the Baron, as now we're going to be finding a team fight around the Baron at the same time that the red team's going to try to finish this off. Mint needs to be careful not to throw the game here, as Alpha Y is going to be in the pit and is going to be able to find a knock-up onto the enemy jungler, but the Galio is going to be able to come in here and create a little bit of space. The Zed's going to be dead immediately, as Asteria is going to be fighting Sloth Balls on the side. The Kayle ultimate is going to be so clutch, as Asteria is going to take no damage during the duration, of course, and that's going to be just enough time for her to be able to recover from the CC and find more damage. The ASOL is going to just teleport out of the play and say, guys, I've done what I can. I'm just going to go get more minions. And the rest of the red team only, I don't think, took any losses there. So it's just a 3-for-0 wipe, as Hardstuck was able to get out of the play for the moment and Kayle not able to track them down. The Baron also did go down, which, to be honest with you, I just noticed. I thought the Baron did not get finished all the while. It seems like Alpha Pig tried to go for the steal right there, but of course was just focused down by the opposing team, and then the smite was able to come through for Idol. And so just a massive win, being able to win out on the team fight 3-for-0, taking no more deaths, really well-timed Kayle ulti, like I said, securing the Baron, and for right now, I'm liking the snowball that I'm seeing in this game, taking, you know, the ram by the horns at the 20-minute mark, saying that we want the enemy team to have to fight us before they scale, and they did manage to just do that. As Krasbudo now will get caught out in the side lane, they are going to damage their squeaky clean reputation, but not before they take out that bot tier 2 turret. I have been hearing inklings that this, just as a complete side note, since I'm a nerd and just watch League content all day, that this Rabadon's Kayle build isn't her bis anymore. That in fact that she's better with some of these other items that have been coming out, but especially next patch, I think they're changing her so she doesn't get attack speed based on every breakpoint of AP anymore. So she's gonna be really good with stuff like Rage Blade. If not that that change is already live already. But yeah, of course, can't be mad at Rabadon's. It's not gonna be horrible, right? Was just curious to see if Krasbudo would be trying to go for some of the newfangled tech, or if he's just going to go for the tried and true. Yunara curving up the 3 items right here, as is Malphite, and to be honest with you, I think this new healing tank item, as Idol's considering going over the wall here to make Hardstuck a past tense. I think this Protoplasm Harness item is really, really good for champs like Malphite. I think it just boosts the survivability of the champions so immensely, especially when you have hyper carries. You can see the blue team right here is going to be trying to contest the soul point once again, just as they did in the previous game, but you know, you have to question whether or not there's enough scaling. There is 2 items on the Smolder and Azul, as Sifra is initiated on. The knockup will be found onto Asteria, and Asteria is going to flash away from the Zed ultimate. Asteria's in a nice position right here, but is only hitting the Ornn as Smolder's beginning their AoE. There's also going to be breathing from the Azul all over Korean Flamer. Asteria, though, undaunted, unafraid, is going to just continue to DPS at the same time that Krasbudo comes in and TPs into the play and cleans up the rest of it, finding a triple kill for themselves on the Kayle. It looked like there was a little glimmer of hope for them initially, as Rising Tide Abyss had a reasonably good initiation right there, but just did not have the damage to be able to carry out the rest of the play. You know, the survivability of Idol and Korean Flamer showing stalwart and true right there, as the remainder of Krasbudo and Asteria just once again flashing away from that Zed ultimate very well. Just played their ranges, was very consistent. You know, didn't have to do anything too special. Just hit whoever was in front of them, and that was enough in that moment. As Krasbudo is going to be able to also finish off that side lane tier 2 once again. Korean Flamer and Asteria are going to disengage from the play, as you have to imagine that for right now, the red team is probably just looking for the resets. Korean Flamer is going to drag a Smolder cube back to Asteria. Asteria might be biting the dust here, as Galio tries to go back in and kill themselves for their AD carry, but at the end of the day, the Galio accidentally was the one to kill Asteria in the first place. So will be some gold going back into the pocket of the Smolder, who went for the Shojin second, which is a little surprising to me. The champion, although a little worse with crit, Definitely does excel with those items. The Shojin's not terrible. It just means that the Smolder is going to need a little bit longer before they're well and truly online. We'll do a little bit of a dragon check right now. Where is he at? How many stackies do you have, Smolder? 264. So they do have their passive completion. We didn't really feel it all that much in that previous play, though they might have just gotten it right now. It just doesn't feel like the damage is there yet, but we'll have to see now that they have the Infinity Edge. This should be a breakpoint where the Smolder actually does become more of a realistic threat. Let's do a gold check as well. Yeah, the Smolder's down about a cool 1,000, which is not quite an item. I would say the Asteria and Haunter are both looking quite impactful. I think actually like the one that's looking the most terrifying is for sure Krasbudo. I mean, no, he's not even that far ahead of Asteria. Just feels like Krasbudo level 18 on the Kale is just so scary as Asteria is only level 14. I'm being distracted by Hardstuck. Just getting ran over here by Korean Flamer and Idol. The Smolder ultimate will land, but really do not all that much. Oh wait, where did Krasbudo die? Krasbudo farming the Krugs right here. On a ward, though, unbeknownst to them, they do have Flash and Ultimate available, but how do they get caught out here? As Alpha Pig goes in on them immediately, is going to be able to dodge a lot of Krasbudo's damage and then flash away. Krasbudo flashing forward to try to finish off Alpha Pig in reply, but is not able to do so and gives the gold over to the likes of Slothballs. And guys, I don't want to be that person, but you know, you're giving gold over to a Smolder and Aesol in the late game. It is a bit scary to be doing something like that. You might have... I mean, Hardstuck didn't even die there, by the way. I thought Hardstuck was being ran over, but they were just completely baiting. They were creating an opportunity for the rest of their team to be able to go in and cross Budo on the side lane. All of a sudden, you know, the game is definitely not good for the side of Rising Tide Abyss, but, you know, they're starting to hit some of their conditions here. If they are able to find more cheeky picks on the Krasbudo and Asteria, you know, Smolder and Aurelion Sol are strong enough to do a lot. That's what I'll say. They shouldn't be able to do enough, but, you know, this is coming down to execution. Right now, you can't relax as Mint, and Korean Flamer is just getting a little bit too confident right now. Gets canceled as he's trying to ult away, and he died right outside... Excuse me, he died right outside the Baron. Krasbudo is really scary on this level 18 Kale right here. Going to make their way over to the Baron to ensure that the side of Rising Tide Abyss is not going to be able to do anything. As I'm sorry, guys, I'm going to back us up one more time because my camera was locked on the Kale. I need to see what happens at the beginning of this team fight, as directed camera is going to show us how this team fight actually begins right here, because we know the initiation is coming. We're going to have a massive Aesol ultimate as Idol's going to be stuck in the front line and Asteria is hitting nothing. Sifra is trying to find an angle to go back in. You can see Idol is healing up so much off of their items as Krasbudo has arrived. The entirety of Rising Tide Abyss does scatter. Idol is able to survive the initial onslaught of that play, and now the Aesol ultimate is down. Idol could decide to go in on their own timing now as they do find Hardstuck here. Slothballs is just trying to clear the mid wave, and Haunter has made their way back onto the scene. Korean Flamer does have their teleport available as both teams are just continuing to sniff around this Baron, seeing if they can catch somebody unawares or if they could rip the Baron itself and try to force the opposing team into the play. The hook from Sifra goes wide. It would have been onto Alpha Pig right there. Krasbudo moving in with the rest of the team onto that mid wave to make sure they don't lose control of the center of the map. Idol going to box with Alpha Y a little bit right here. The bot lane of Rising Tide is a little bit out of position right here as Krasbudo is trying to find range. Idol's going to go forward, but is a little bit too far forward. The entirety of Min is being zoned away by the Aesol Black Hole, and now Alpha Y is going to try to find the CC to set up the space for the rest of their team. Haunter is dealing a lot of damage along with Aesol as well. Korean Flamer is very tanky in the front line. Alpha Pig is going to set up a play on them, but the Zonius is going to keep them safe from the death mark. Alpha Y getting away with the rest of the team as Alpha Pig has used their R. Slothballs is going to have the Aurelion Sol ultimate very soon. They just used it. I don't know how close they are to level 16. Haunter looking for a play. Asteria just ran outside the bush. Might die here, but barrier is away from the initial damage from that Smolder Q. We'll be able to survive, but just barely, and not burn away to that Smolder stack passive. This is what I'm saying, guys. The game looks like it should be so easy to close out for the side of Mint, but these champions are starting to look really scary. You know, this is always the consequence of just playing a little bit too loose in the mid game. You know, you give an inch, these champions can for sure take a mile. And Krasbudo hasn't even had the luxury of being able to just camp out in a side wave and just farm out that level 19 and level 20 for themselves right here. Mint needs to be very careful and needs to tread lightly, otherwise they're going to find themselves behind to a Smolder Ornn Aurelion Sol composition, and that's not something that's easy to come back from, particularly when you have 3 tanks in your composition. Sifra lining up the hook. Idle looking for their angle. Alpha Y just walking in, trying to create space for the team, as the pink wards are in a better position for the side of Mint Gaming. That line bush is going to be anyone's to contest right now, as there's vision for both teams. Alpha Y is going to step up and find the position of Krasbudo. Has to once again set up the rest of their carries very effectively. This is a composition that does not really have any super good engage conditions, so Alpha Y has to walk forward and be willing to soak a little bit of damage to be able to set up for the rest of the squad. Fortunately for them, they are pretty strong on front to back, though Alpha Y does not have enough magic resistance to be able to tank up that Kale for too long. The dual damage threats of Asteria and Krasbudo can just rip this Ornn apart if they're given too long to be able to focus him down. Korean Flamer going to land a taunt as the Black Hole is going to come through. The Smolder ultimate will be okay right here, as Korean Flamer is getting very low. Idle's going to go into the backline at the same time the Galio ultimate comes through, and the Smolder is completely one-shot. It's going to come down to whether the Ace Soul is able to do a lot right here, as Krasbudo has popped the ultimate but is able to find a nice position for themselves. Alpha Pig was not able to kill anyone, but got that Kale ultimate out. Idle's going to flash forward and get Alpha Pig further outside the play. Where's Asteria? Asteria died at some point where I did not catch it. Both AD carries being eliminated at the beginning, at the onset of that team fight. Idle and Galio both able to eliminate that Smolder, but now it's Slothball's moment as he can come back into the play. Alpha Pig is searching for a Smite Steal. You have to feel that if this Elder is Soul, and that'll be enough for the Dragons to be able to take over the Rift. Right now, Alpha Pig scouting, looking, 2800. He's going to go for it right now, and he does manage to steal well the Elder Drake. The Kale does finish off the Zed, but they need to be so careful. I'm so surprised that Slothballs didn't go for more right there, because he's so powerful, and a level 17 Aurelion Soul could probably just fly in and just eliminate everybody with a single glance from his Cosmic Breath, but does not decide to go for it. Decides to simply accept that the steal happened and that Alpha Pig found his moment. All of a sudden, I don't know, guys, who is really supposed to win this game. Typically, having this amount of tanky engage in your composition with a couple of hyper carries would just kind of spell the end of the game. But right now, the Aurelion Small, I like that. The Aurelion Small combination has been enough so far to make this game look very, very, very on edge right now, on a knife's edge in this late game. Krasbudo, though, has returned to the earlier way of playing the game and is now just going to play on the side lane. For sure, Ornn cannot hold this Kale, so it's going to be on the blue team to try to find something to do on the opposite side of the map or send more people to try to match them. Krasbudo really should just continue to pressure this Ornn as much as possible, by the way. Krasbudo does not need to back off here. They really should just continue to exert pressure away from the play as much as possible. When this Aesol and Smolder are grouped up, it just looks so hard to win. And the other thing too is that when you are playing side lane as this Kale, you are pulling the only front line on the opposing team to yourself. So the Zed, Aurelion Sol, Smolder, and Karma have a really hard time being able to actually find space, as this Baron, the HP bar is broken, so don't blame me for this. Obviously, Riot Client, once again, just not working. I do have the Baron clicked on, as it is going to be at 1800 HP. We're going to move over here to the ensuing team fight, as Alpha Y has pulled the Ornhorn, but is not going to be able to find anybody. As Idol is simply going to blast Cone away from the play. Krasbudo still has their ultimate available, as does everybody else. The Baron's going to get started once again, as it is 1300 HP. Slothball is going to lose half their HP. Can Idol once again escape? The ASO ultimate is going to tag everybody, as Krasbudo is going to fight forward with their ultimate on. The Zed ultimate's not going to do too much, as Asteria is now going to run down Hardstuck. Slothballs can't hit everyone at once, can only focus down one member of Mint at a time. Hanser is the one that has the AoE, but Hanser is dead right now. Korean Flamer is going to TP down into the bot lane at the same time that the entirety of Rising Tide Abyss is going to scramble to try to get back and defend their base. Slothballs, of course, can freeze these minions, but Sifra's going to flash ulti. Slothballs, Idol's going to try to run them down. Sifra's not going to be able to find the hook. Asteria's trying to find the damage, but is getting very low, and Slothballs is able to survive the play. They might be able to actually hold this and give Rising Tides Abyss another moment to be able to actually play in this game, but it's getting very dicey right here. They have to find their moment right now, as the Nexus is exposed and Min is starting to focus it down. They want to just find some more kills, because honestly, they have managed to be able to once again close this game out. It was once again looking a little bit rocky there for a second, but they were able to finally find the team fight. Slothball's just a little bit out of position. Idol was able to force them away. Krasbudo's ultimate ultimately looked way too strong into the Zed ultimate. And with Asteria being able to open up freely, that is the end of the second game, and Mint is able to finally close that one out. Damage charts check. C9 Hanser on the Smolder, once again, pumping out the damage. As did Krasbudo. I think the Kale, once again, like, really was the thing that really sealed this game. If they don't go Kale here, like, almost very exactly, like, maybe a Gwen could do something similar, but not even then. Like, the Kale ultimate value was just, like, so crazy by the end of the game. So, really, my compliments to the chef of that draft. Mint did a really good job of playing out the early stages of that game. But really, I mean, in both games so far, there has been moments where it seemed like Rising Tide Abyss might be able to make the comeback happen. And this one, even more so. They're like even more heavily leaned into their scaling identity. In the last game, it was really just one moment where it seemed like kills onto the Jinx might give them a way back into the game. This game, they were well and truly right there. If they have just one more good team fight, one more key objective, they can just win the game outright. As soon as they pull ahead, there's just no coming back for the rest of this Mint draft. But with that being said, I think both teams are going to be gearing up for Game 3. That was a very exciting and very competitive game too, so my compliments once again to both teams as well. But we're going to have to see if Rising Tide has anything left in the bag to show us in Game 3 of our Best of 5 Fearless. And we're going to have to see if Mint is going to have the killer instinct to finally close this one out. I'll be right back. Alright, MetaShift, welcome back. This time we are going to get a little bit of a side swap here. Rising Tide Abyss going to try their hand once again on the red side. Mint going to be, of course, taking to our blue side. Checking on our bans so far right here, we are going to be seeing that Viego and the Wukong once again hitting the ban table. Silas, something we previously saw get banned in the second rotation, is going to be something that we're going to be banning in the early rotation instead, giving us some clue that Mint probably will be going with something with a pretty strong teamfight ultimate. Teamfights have been very important so far in the series. Doesn't surprise me too much. Rising Tide Abyss, they're going to go ahead and ban away the Lilia and the Gwen and the Sivir. Same thing as the previous two games. Yeah. Not too much to say about that. The Lucian being picked initially here. I do like Lucian right now because he's very nice with Essence Reaver, and honestly, everybody's kind of addicted to Lucian Nami, but he's good with a lot of stuff. You know, the champion's very dynamic as far as his pairings go. He is good with enchanters, but he's also very excellent with engage supports that are actually able to just create the space for him to go in during the lane phase. Lucian, of course, his biggest weakness in League is just that he's squishy in short range and doesn't really have any defensive tools. And when you have that combination, you can do all the damage you want to. You're just a top laner looking at you ways away before they decide to just actually get rid of you. So Lucian obviously does not have those same difficulties when he's in his lane phase. Has to be able to usually establish a game lead to be able to continue to retain effectiveness as the game carries on. But I do like the Lucian in general. Rising Tide Abyss, going to be throwing down the gambit a little bit here. Basically, if you go Braum, Tristana, and you're against the Lucian is going to be saying, well, yeah, I want a range support. Something that you could go for here is something like the Morgana, which is a little bit better right now than it used to be. But instead, Mint is just going to go ahead and pick up the Lucian Nami. The Lucian Nami, of course, is still going to be reasonably strong on its own, though I will say Lucian Nami can be a bit vulnerable to the Braum Tristana all-in. Its 2v2 trading outside of all-ins is like still very formidable. Its sustain is still very good, so it should by no means definitely lose this bot lane matchup. In fact, it should probably win against the Braum overall as they continue to harass it down over time. It's just that both bot lanes basically have a way of being able to play the game, because one side has the all-in and the other side has the consistent push and 2v2 poke and short trades. After the Nami was picked up, Mint decided to go for the Lysandra. The Lysandra is not something I'm accustomed to seeing blind. It does have, it struggles against anything that is too high of range and can harass it down, like Mel. But the thing that Mel doesn't really have against Lysandra is a good reflect spell. So it's a bit of a double-edged sword there. If she is somehow able to time the reflect on Lysandra's R, well, you know, obviously it's massive, but it's pretty hard to do because it's an immediate point and click. The advantage that Mel has is that she's, of course, able to very heavily outrange the Lysandra. Lysandra is generally something that you pick when you know the opponents are picking a lot of champions that have to go in near her, or she's going to have easy target access to with like a very high burst build. In this case, you know, Tristana kind of fits that, kind of doesn't. She doesn't really love playing against Braum, and this Mel matchup is finicky at best. So I don't think that the Lysandra is necessarily as strong as some of the other drafts that we've been seeing from Mint this series. I think their drafting this series has been very good so far. On the side of Rising Tide Abyss, Braum Tristana is definitely solid. And Mel, I think, is solid here as well, even if not perfect. So I do think our draft so far is looking pretty even. I think the big thing is that both sides right now are strongly lacking engage. So I'm not a huge fan of Volibear. What I will say is that Volibear, if ahead, definitely has the ability to be able to cause enough mayhem to be able to function as that front line and as a limited engage option. But the champion, if behind, is paper, and he's a very squishy fighter, and he needs too long to ramp up before he's dead. So the Volibear definitely one of these champions that needs to be able to find an early game advantage, And what we've seen so far in this series is that Rising Tide Abyss has not been up to the task of being able to win the early game. Mint has squarely won both early games very handedly, and they may continue to do so this game. And if that's the case, the Volibear pick is going to start looking much weaker very quickly. Mint going to be able to go for this brand as well. They definitely have to go for an 80 top laner. The brand jungle is not something I've seen a lot of. I still think it's fine. It was really, really OP last year, but now probably just good in specific spots. I can definitely see it being pretty good into this composition overall, though. Braum, Tristana, Volibear all wanted to play at pretty low ranges, as well as Renekton being in a very similar boat. So I like the brand here. Mint, though, I don't love the Aatrox. I would like to have seen this brand or this Aatrox feature at least one more limited engage option. Right now, your only real crowd control, like reliable crowd control, is Lysandra Ultimate or Lysandra W, or, you know, Nami Wave, which is not really consistent engage, is it? So Mint's composition definitely looks a lot more difficult to pilot than previous ones. Like last game, they had 3 tanks. Like, not make it easier on yourself to play the game. This game, you're definitely going to have to be all about timers. You know, when you're playing something like Lysandra brand Aatrox, you have to be very coordinated about when you go in together, and you always have to be very coordinated about what spots you play in, because it's a very AoE heavy composition. That being said, you know, they're champions. Just as champions individually do pretty well into the opponents, like I was saying. Brand likes playing against this comp overall that Rising Tide Abyss has for themselves, so long as he doesn't literally cast his ultimate into the Mel. And the Aatrox also is in a pretty similar boat. He has a lot of champions that he does not mind fighting, and even the Lysandra, you know, there's a lot of like tankier champions that she's not a super big fan of fighting, but she can at least hit these champs. So like champion to champion, not too bad. As an overall synthesized composition, not all the pieces are there, but it's very similar for Rising Tide Abyss as well, as they basically just have 3 bruisers, a Tristana, and a Mel. None of these champions of which really want to do too much of the same things. They do have a very brawly composition, and if they're able to be ahead, if they have better stat sticks, being able to brawl in the middle of like a brand Lysandra, you're probably going to come out of that on top, so long as the Lucian and Aatrox damage is not too high. I think the nice thing about their comp into what Mint has drafted for themselves is that it all makes it pretty hard for Lucian to play. I think that's the biggest observation for me. Mint has had to rely on their AD carry to have pretty decent games so far. And in this game, pretty hard to have a decent game as Lucian. You know, Braum blocks your damage, Tristana can turn on you pretty easily, Mel can one-shot you, has a lot of AoE magic damage that's pretty hard to dodge, and Volibear and Renekton are perfectly happy to be able to find a low-range AD carry themselves and really ruin your day. So, with that being said, that's my 2 cents out of the way. I'm going to go ahead and just pan us over to the teams who are in the process of picking their champions in Champion Select. And once our spectator delay has concluded, I will be right back with the cast for Game 3 of this Fearless Best of 5 in our MSL Diamond Playoffs between Mint, Ship of Theseus, and Rising Tide Abyss. Oh, and of course, I'm your host, Mackie, and it's been my pleasure to cast for you guys so far. Thank you to the Metashift community and anyone else who might be tuning in. Alright, welcome back everyone. The game 3 between Mint Ship Theseus and Rising Tide Abyss. Something we almost saw there that has been definitely something that I think there's been a lot of reflection about is what do invades look like a level 1? If you want to get a Raptor ward down, oh boy. Anyway, if you want to get a Raptor ward down at level 1, you have to book it to the Raptor camp. You have to put that thing down early. And with that being the case, people might run in towards that Raptor camp somewhat haphazardly, trying to get that ward down. And that could be a good opportunity to be able to prevent that from happening as a stack and then killing your opponent. Of course, the hard thing is that with minions spawning so soon, laners need to go to lane very early. And so it can be pretty hard to defend that Raptor camp as well. One second. Alpha Pig is making his way around the bend right here as Krasbudo is definitely committed forwards. The Q3 is not going to be enough to finish. It's not going to be enough to finish off Alpha Y. Right now, a good sign of life for the side of Rising Tide Abyss. Krasbudo, who's been having some pretty consistent lane phases, finally falling down to Alpha Pig, who is making their presence felt in the early game. A little 3-camp gank is going to see Idol moving into the enemy jungle now, trying to take away some of the camps, trying to punish Alpha Pig's play on the top side. Krasbudo, probably not wise to have invested their flash that way, now seems a little bit more punishable. As Cypher is here to try to help out their brand to get away from the play. There's lots of red pings going down, trying to catch somebody out right here. Korean Flamer, though, also ready to go for the play, as Hardstuck is going to go down immediately. The Volibear is here now, and the Volibear is going to eliminate whoever they get to touch, and his Hysteria is going to get very low. Haunter is also in on the play, but Idol is not going to land that Q, but does flash forward and land the W. Kind of a Chad, but it doesn't matter because Haunter is playing with Barrier, and you know what that means? You're going to get beta sometimes, and so the brand is going to be waiting as the same time that the top laners are going to be waging war. Cypher is going to try to make their way away from Alpha Pig, but of course they're up the creek with no paddle, as they say, and Alpha Pig is going to bite a fish and collect. And so that skirmish finally going over to the side of Rising Tide Abyss. We've been seeing a lot of these early game skirmishes going over to the side of Mint this series, but finally one going over the opposite direction. We're going to be seeing a very big Volibear to start this game. Guy already has 2k gold, 2.2k gold. Going to be making his way very quickly over to their first item of the game. Meanwhile, on top side, I just noticed Krasbudo has a big lead over this Renekton. Of course, the Renekton is going to be collecting a big wave under turret very shortly here, but I didn't recognize that 4 minutes into the game, you were already going to have a 20 CS lead. That's quite considerable, Krasbudo. However, likewise on mid, Slothball's also building up already a modest CS lead of 10. That one's really much less noticeable now that I think about it, as Lysandra is collecting. Monster is going to jump in onto the Lucian, who is not going to get stunned because Cypher had a Smurf bubble right there, dropping a nice little double bubble trouble onto Hardstuck and C9 Haunter, making sure that Hysteria did not take a massive amount of damage from that Braum stun plus Tristana bomb combo. Asteria dashing forward. That's really psychopathic as Hardstuck puts up the shield, and Asteria is now going to start kiting back. We're going to see Asteria stepping up as Sifra lands another nice bubble right there. Haunser's going to go in, is going to try to find the reset. That is not going to be enough to kill Haunser, as right now Haunser and Hardstuck is getting the better of the 2v2. Asteria probably just overstepping there a little bit too much, dashing back in when they thought they had a cooldown window. The reality of the situation is that Lucian Nami actually is like kind of a scaling lane. And if you overdo it a little bit too much before you really have lethal damage, you can really get still turned on because Braum does a massive amount of damage. That was a really nice combo from Idol. You know, just a feeling. I don't know Idol very well as a player. I'm just a caster after all. But Idol is looking very good on this brand right now, which is like, you know, not a very common champion to be super clean on. So I'm curious to see if they continue to be able to show some pretty decent comboing on the brand. Just looks effortless. It looks very clean so far, what they've been doing. That skirmish didn't go their way, but, you know, he was like a hair away from predicting the Tristana jump with his Q, and the Flash W looked like it was like right on target. So Alpha Pig going to take the first dragon of the game right here, as finally Rising Tide Abyss has been able to win the early game for themselves. Rising Tide Abyss going to be able to take the first dragon, which will be an Earth Drake, give themselves a little bit more resistances. Volibear pinging out onto the Void Grubs. Definitely a good game for them to try to contest those. The last couple of games they weren't able to do so. But Alpha Pig being a very big bear right now could be the one to lead the leverage of those grubbies. Meanwhile, mid, Slothballs continuing to give Korean Flamer a hard time. Slothballs is going to look for their ultimate very shortly here. Ult yourself, ult yourself. Korean Flamer did ult themselves in time, so they are not going to die to the Mel ultimate right there as both mid laners trade them, though Korean Flamer does have to recall as Slothballs is doing a good job of leveraging Mel's early range and early damage over the Lysandra. I do believe that Slothballs has won themselves a plate, and they probably after that will just be finding their reset. The Grubbies will be spawning before too long, in fact, in just 40 seconds. Curious to see if Sifra decides to once again make their way over to those Grubbies. Although I was saying that the Volibear is very strong, this brand is by no means weak. So this brand should be able to very reasonably contest this objective around the rest of their team. Looking for Sifra's pathing right now. Sifra, yep, is going to start making their way up towards that mid lane. Is going to be making their way into that river. We're going to be getting a lot of action right here as Krasbudo finds the first knockup onto Alpha Y. Kind of just waiting for that moment where Krasbudo ultimately tries to run down Alpha Y. But for right now, being patient enough, recognizing that Alpha Pig might be laying in the wings right now. Hardstuck is here, is going to tank up the full combo from the brand. Might be able to survive for a little while with that shield, but ultimately just way too much damage. Like I was saying, Idol's just looking very clean, very good on the brand right here. Just standing in the bush, being very patient, allowing the Braum to walk into him, and that's all she wrote for the Braum. And for the third game in a row, it does seem like Mint should be the ones that are able to secure the first 3 Grubbies of the game for themselves. The first 3 and the only 3, of course. Alpha Pig going to go for another gank on a Krasbudo. Alpha Y popping the Dominus, of course, is a very strong Crocodile no matter what the scoreline. Krasbudo now going to be fighting with Alpha Pig. He's going to be kiting back, but he is ignited. Alpha Y going to flash early, having a suspicion that Krasbudo was going to go for the play, and he did decide to go for it eventually, but he did so when he didn't have any of his spells available, and so Alpha Y is going to be able to get away with that play, along with Alpha Pig, the Alpha dudes together, just finally bringing down Krasbudo, who's having a great lane phase for himself in the CS department, but so far hasn't been able to turn any 1v2 plays. Korean Flamer getting harassed and pushed off of the play once again. Korean Flamer also has their Lysandra ultimate ready. Slothballs knows they're going to have to try to kill Korean Flamer without using their ultimate. This time Korean Flamer didn't ult themselves. They decided to try to turn with their ultimate onto Slothballs, which is a very suspect decision, to be perfectly honest with you. The only way that you should be using the ultimate when you're being ran down by Mel like that is ulting yourself, but, you know, Korean Flamer thought that they might have had an angle right there, but unfortunately did not calculate properly on whether or not they'd be executed by that Mel, and the Mel right now is kind of running away with the game. Well, not the game, really. Sorry, it's definitely an overstatement. Running away with the lane, to be sure, though. We've seen Slothballs have several really good plays this game. This so far has definitely been his best lane phase over Korean Flamer. Korean Flamer looking a little bit uncomfortable on the Lysandra right now. And we do have to recognize, as we talked about last week as well, you know, the deeper we get into Fearless, generally you're going to have more games where it seems like a player is a little bit uncomfortable on whatever it is that they're playing. Interesting. Oh, is that a play? That's not a play. Honestly, just trading flashes there with Sifra. The objective is going to be up in 10. We'll have to see how consequential those flashes become. On top side, Aatrox has been able to finish off his Shojin. Alpha Y not able to finish off much of anything yet, down a cool 40 CS. That's at least 600 gold being down just in the CS department between the two top laners. Both junglers haven't been able to finish off their first item. Lysandra has not been able to finish off the Ludens. Tristana a little bit behind on that Yuntal, so definitely little differences in power between the various lanes across the rift. Gonna have to see how that manifests as a dragon fight, because it seems like both teams are looking to try to secure this. A death bush from the blue team does not land, as Korean Flamer once again finds himself caught out by Slothballs, who's being very patient with their Mel ultimate. Now it seems like the red team is going to be able to actually win this play, as Idol's dropping a lot of damage. He's just going to be too squishy and not have quite enough to be able to actually win the fight outright on his own. Korean Flamer has been pretty deadweight this game and needs to be able to try to find a way to be useful, because Slothballs right now is just hammering them. And you can get hammered, but it's just, if you're getting hammered so hard you can't even participate in a key team fight anymore, that's when it's really starting to become a big issue. So for right now, Slothballs definitely looking like through the mid gap is going to be continuing to try to push this game. The Mel's moving top with their ultimate right now, and this could be another situation where Krasbudo might go down to the Mel, or at least to a gank. The Krasbudo is going to find a little bit of a heal right here, but might not be enough for Krasbudo to ultimately go down to the Mel ultimate. Slothballs is going to die right here, so once again, Slothballs is just one of these players where you get a lot of good and then sometimes just a lot of not so good, like I keep on saying. Slothballs has definitely been, you know, just a very strong point for the side of Rising Tide Abyss this game, but roaming up top side and greeting for the last charge to be able to kill with your ultimate and giving a shutdown over to an Aatrox that's already crushing lane phase, you know, that's really not what the doctor ordered so far as being able to actually continue to extend your lead. Instead, the side of Mint is now ahead of the curve of the game. They have 3 grubbies, and you have to imagine that Krasbudo on this Aatrox is going to be a big problem in the side lane. Though Alpha Pig, never saying die, is going to try to run down Krasbudo here, and indeed will be able to do so fairly easily. The Triforce on Alpha Pig, making this a very big bear, though Volibear is just one of these champions that has a kind of a hard time scaling into a lot of games, but we'll have to see how Alpha Pig is able to do in this one. At the very least, it's a lot of champions that Alpha Pig can fight. Idle now, looking for the initial play on the Hardstuck, recognizing this is like the more viable target. Is he able to land a stun? He's going to just accept the stun onto Hardstuck, and it actually will not land. He's going to also drop the ultimate onto the Braum there. Hardstuck is quite low here, and Korean Flamer is just trying not to lose his face again before the play starts. Slothballs is going to look for maybe a one-shot onto them, but they're going to get one-shot in reverse instead, as Korean Flamer actually is the first one to get focused down. Asteria is not able to quite finish off Slothballs, and Asteria now wants to try to find some space to continue the fight. But Alpha Pig is just waiting for another opportunity to go back in again. Idle, wanting to be able to get the Scuttle Crab for themselves, is not going to be able to do so, and that's going to be a small but meaningful win for the side of Rising Tide Abyss. But we're going to have to see what Idle has to say about that. They are not on a ward right now, An EQ onto the bear might keep him off for a little while, as the bear is going to ult away. Hanser is going to jump right in. Idle now dropping a lot of damage, and honestly, Hanser, I don't know what hit you, but it looked like it was a truck, and it looked like it was hard to move. And so Hanser just going to go down right there, as Idle continues to game on the brand. Sloth Balls always bouncing back no matter what happened in the previous play. Going to collect a shutdown onto Idle right there and continue to scale up to be a very powerful Mel, already working into that second Shadow Flame as an item right now. First turn of the game, of course, going to go over to the blue team, as Krasbudo is now going to be looking for a straight up dive and Alpha Y. Alpha Y is going to pop the Dominus and be able to shove Krasbudo off of themselves. Sloth Balls looking for another solo kill onto Korean Flamer, will not quite find it right here. Alpha Pig coming to try to drink from the same well that they have multiple times this game. Just going to find Krasbudo. I mean, there's not a lot of counterplay, is there? Just going to be an easy kill for Alpha Y onto Krasbudo. Alpha Pig just able to just kill that Aatrox with ease. He's going to need a lot more defensive items before he's able to survive the initial burst of damage from these two. Though Aatrox with the right items can eventually do so. The lane phase, as good as it may have been so far for the Aatrox, there's not a lot about playing Renekton Volibear. Ooh. Okay, Idle's going to get the stun reflected this time, but Slothball is going to lose their flash, and Hanser's also maybe going to lose their life. Yeah, that's not going to be too good there, as Idle is not going to be able to finish off Slothballs immediately, but they're ticking, burning, and yes, indeed, the brand is eventually going to finish off Slothballs. Kind of just a silly skirmish, and honestly, C9 Hanser, I don't know how much Tristana they play. All I know is that when I pick up Tristana again after a long time not playing Tristana, I sometimes just jump in on things that I should not be jumping in on, and that kind of seemed like one of those moments. I just jumped directly into a Nami wave, and then, you know, all of a sudden the 80 carries just dealing no damage. They're just running for their life. Slothballs, after using that initial reflect, try to step back in and help their 80 carry, but it was certainly in vain there. Alpha Pig, recognizing that most of the success of Rising Tide Abyss has basically been coming out of this top lane whenever he's ganking there, hanging around on top side, but not going to be able to find anything else. Not until Krasbudo once again extends. Cowabunga is right. I like that. Monster decided to go decided to go surfing. Don't have an objective for a little while. This is the part of the game that sometimes feels a little bit quiet, but, you know, it usually doesn't last for too long. And as I say so, Slothball is getting a nice reflect right there, not able to root onto anybody. Idle, once again, just so nice with these stuns, but there's going to be a nice Braum Fissure made right there, but Idle going to pop the ultimate and deal a lot of damage before they actually go down here. Only able to get one passive proc, though, as still the red team members are getting very low. Hanser's just jumping forward. Asteria wants to try to finish off the Volibear, who again is very strong, but tries flashing back into the shield and will not be able to do so. Asteria waiting for the next round of their dashes. As Hanser recognizes he doesn't win those ones, he's just going to go ahead and hop out away after finishing off Sifra. Use that blast cone to be able to get the heck away from that Lucian who was looking to try to take their head off. Asteria, once again, dashing forward here, tanking 1 turret shot. That's not good. Taking 2 turret shots and having a Braum passive on your head is a fast way to have Tristana go back in on you. Tristana, though, going to pop the barrier, and now Asteria is in the middle of nowhere. That was not too good from the AD carry of Mint. Alpha Y and Krasbudo now continuing to scrap on top side. Krasbudo getting a little bit of a headache. Probably frustrated. He was doing so well in lane phase, but kept on getting ganked. And all of a sudden now, this Renekton is looking just fine in this topside matchup, going back in with the full stack of Fury, popping half your HP, and then able to get away. Krasbudo, though, doesn't want to let the Renekton get away with it too easily, and continues to be able to push forward whenever he thinks that he can. Dragon in 213. I don't remember if when the Herald was taken. No, I don't remember. Slothballs fighting 2v1 on mid. Slothballs actually just realized was sieging on that mid tier 1. Very bold of him. His Korean Flamer is now going to try to go in on the Mel, but realizes they're too far forward and they have no damage. Sifra is going to go down because that is a very squishy fish, and that's a very squishy man with a big shield from the Freljord because he doesn't get the chance to put that shield back up again. Also, just a Bandle Pipes on that Braum. All he is a little bag of HP, as Asteria is going to just continue to dash forward. Hanser is going to be able to hit whoever is just available for them in the front line. This mid-tier 1 is not going to go down too easily for either team right now, as either side do have strong enough champions to be able to hold that reasonably well. The Renekton is finally going to be able to finish off that top tier 1 turret, but the 1v1 is now going to start brewing between Alpha Y and Krasbudo. But you know who doesn't respect 1v1s? Alpha Pig. Alpha Pig and Alpha Y, they do 2v1s, not 1v1s. They're going to go back in on a Krasbudo, but he is surviving a little bit longer this time. How long does he actually have, though? Found a nice heal as the Volibear is going to ult forward, but not find Krasbudo, and Krasbudo is laughing at them as he now drops another knockup onto Alpha Y. Krasbudo sees Hanser coming in and says, "I'll try to peel for your Korean Flamer, but you are gone." Hanser's going to hop away, and Alpha Pig is also going to try to make his way away from the play. He's going to be running through the bushes, trying to use that jungle pet to be able to help himself out, but Alpha Pig is probably not going to be able to make it out of here. And you can see that Krasbudo is now just healing off of all this conflict now, as he is an Acolyte of War, and he is going to be able to find a double kill onto Alpha Pig, as well as C9 Hanser trying to help out. But Slothball's now getting chained up, drops the Reflect, needs to be careful here, doesn't have a shutdown, but he does have a life to be able to at least try to take care of, as Asteria is just kind of playing very loose and free underneath these turrets. Hardstuck is trying to hold him off as their team has not spawned yet, but Asteria has full confidence, as does Krasbudo, after Mint was able to win that topside altercation, which really just happened because Krasbudo was very upset that Alpha Y took his turret. Third dragon of the game on its way right now. Rising Tide Abyss going to, of course, want to try to secure the third dragon of the game. Would be their first soul of the series. Asteria and Idol going to be a little bit ahead of the rest of the boys. Korean Flamer and Sifra now trying to make their way back in. Idol going to have their stun reflected, but outranged at this time at least. Slothballs now not having the reflect anymore. Idol can try to walk back up again. His stun is a much shorter cooldown than Slothball's reflect. Right now, I like the position of the blue team. We have talked about how when you're a low engaged composition, you have to be first in the play, and right now the blue team is living up to that. Korean Flamer is going to hold off Alpha Pig, who is now starting to hit that point where Volibear begins to fall off. You might have a couple of items that is so hard to get into the play, as Alpha Y is now going to try to get away from the moment. Alpha Y is going to go down, and that's going to be a resetting Krasbudo, who's going to pop the ultimate very soon. Korean Flamer also going forward, able to help finish off Hanser, and that's a 2-for-0 trade, as Mint is going to be able to win the play from the river. The opposing team was not able to enter, and the second Chemtech Drake of the game will go to the side of Mint, who is looking to mount a comeback in this game. In fact, they already have. Can anybody in chat remind me what a Chemtech Drake does? Chemtech Drake does as far as stats? Is this still like damage resistance when you're low? I can't figure out where I'm supposed to check this. Yeah, why isn't it working? Oh, nice. Okay, right. I get to know what every Drake does except for Chemtech Drakes. Anyway, Idol's going to find Slothball on the side right here. Idol's not patient enough to be able to hold his stun until after that reflects, but really doesn't have to worry about that. He might be an angry bee, but at least he's not a dead bee. Slothball is going to fall down once again in the side lane. Alpha Pig shadowing Alpha Y, looking for a way to be able to look for a topside play, as Asteria once again full confidence dashing forward, going to get tagged up by the Braum, but is going to get away. The Braum now out of shields and also out of time. Sifra going to land another nice bubble. Pretty good Nami stuff coming out from Sifra this game. As Krasbudo, 2 levels up onto Alpha Y, is just sort of slowly but surely taking away this bot lane tier 2 turret. Of course, they still have 3 grubs, and so no turret is going to be lasting for too long. Asteria, Sifra, Idol, all going to be burning down that Baron very quickly. It doesn't really seem like the red team has a lot of good ways of being able to amass a contest right here. Alpha Pig is going to look for a way to just run in, but Korean Flamer is just going to start ulting him as 2k, and the Baron is dead. Alpha Pig not able to get in for a potential smite steal. Good zoning from Korean Flamer right there. Good fundamental stuff. His Idol wants to be able to try to end the game right now. Gonna flash forward and just hit the Zonias for a little bit of swagger. Krasbudo gonna be trying to also run down Alpha Pig, who spent most of his game just ganking him. Gonna try to gank him back right here, but Alpha Pig just a little bit too fast, too furious. A bear on 4 legs is a formidable thing to try to catch. Oof. Slothballs just collecting a little bit on top side. Gonna be able to get to that Leandries before too long, but feels the Leandries will also be a little too late. Smashing down that mid tier 3 is the side of Mint ship Theseus, and that inhibitor to boot is also going to go down. The collective of them all backing away towards the base. Idol, of course, always looking for an opportunity to turn. I would expect just a reset and reallocation onto lanes. A little 1-0-4 action or vice versa should serve them best fine for being able to progress this game. Though they don't even really seem to be too interested in recalling. As this bot lane tier 2 turret, you can see all those little crystals starting to build up at the base. Just one little auto attack would probably be enough to finish it off, but wisely they back away from the play, recognizing that there's really no reason to overextend and throw gold back to them. Don't get me wrong, it's not like Rising Tide Abyss is playing like the now, hold on a second. Krasbudo, what do you got in this 1v2 as Alpha Pig and Alpha Y is going to 2v1 you one more time. Level 17, but the Ignite's going to go down. You don't have too much healing. How much time do you have? Do you have enough damage to be able to kill Alpha Y? The Sterix is popped, and now he's going to be chaining up Alpha Pig as the TP's coming through. There's not going to be enough damage, and now Lissandra's going to be left in the 1v2 to try to make up for whatever remains of Krasbudo's 2v1 as Hans's making the way in. Sifra also just walks directly into the AD carry, just doesn't even recognize that Tristana is there. Asteria also now going to have the opportunity to get Hanser because Sifra lands another super nice bubble, and now Asteria gets the W from Sifra, and they are just gliding back onto Hardstuck as another nice bubble is dodged away from Alpha Pig. Alpha Pig so badly wants to catch Asteria. Slothballs should be able to kill Asteria right here. The Mel ultimate maybe just not enough to kill. I thought it would be. Slothballs choking on the Q. Now wants to be able to at least be able to finish off Sifra, but Sifra is just swimming through the air right now. Finally going to go down the Slothballs. Not really even sure who won on that play. Just a bloodbath in topside for pretty much no reason. At the very least, what I will say is that distracted the blue team, Mint ship Theseus, long enough to not reallocate and re-siege. So I suppose it was a winning play in a very strange sense for Rising Tide Abyss. This inhibitor, this Nexus turret doesn't really matter at all. And ultimately, I have to imagine for any kills that went down there, or at least for one of them, there must have been a shutdown or something, because the gold lead has ballooned to about 6k. The Lucian already starting up the Chemtech Drake, looking to secure the third one of the game for the side of Mint ship Theseus. Krasbudo just doing his duties as a vanguard and zoning off the opposing team. As right now, the remainder of the blue team is going to be all collecting onto the bot side right now. Sifra is going to be the only straggler. One auto attack onto that bot lane tier 2 turret should be enough to... Let's see it. Oh, here goes Lissandra looking for a 3-man engage, is able to find it, should be able to ult themselves if they feel like they're in any danger. Hearthstick is going to dash away and put up the shield and is able to buy a little bit of space, but it's not going to be enough to be able to buy anything more than that. Alpha Y is now going to try to get away from Idol, but Rylai's is crazy looking on brand, so you just can't move, and eventually that's going to mean that the Wolves are going to be able to just round you up and eventually take you down as you're hamstrung trying to get back to your base. Kresbudo and Asteria ready to dash back in again on a moment's notice. Idol going to be able to have to take their own stun once again, but Alpha Pig, who was so strong at the beginning of this game, is now simply a bear with 3 items, none of which are strong enough to be able to make enough of a difference in this team fight, and that's just going to be the end of the series as Mint Theseus is going to just roll over Rising Tide Abyss. They're just going to take this best of 5 Fearless series in 3 games and make it look good. 2 games, pure dominance, and in this one, showing it off that they can also win from behind. Let's get a little post-game check. Idol looked like he was smurfing on the brand, honestly. I really enjoyed that. Kresbudo constantly in a 2v1, lots of damage there. Korean Flamer, little bit of a struggle in the mid during the lane phase, but found that nice little engage towards the end. And like I said, Asteria just looked like they were playing with full confidence. And who could forget about Sifra hitting a lot of really good bubbles that game. Compliments to the bubble game right there. Meanwhile, on the side of Rising Tide Abyss, yeah. I think Alpha Pig definitely had a really good game for themselves. Slothballs, I think, in the series overall, I just noticed that they have, like, again, like that dynamic. Like, they make a lot of really good plays, and then they just have kind of a head scratcher come right after that. I do think that really the big crux of this game is just that Asteria and Sifra just seem like they were very consistently ahead in this series, and having just a very consistent bot lane definitely makes the game very easy for you. And overall, it just seemed like stronger drafting for the side of Mint Theseus, and honestly, all that came together to result in what was, again, a pretty dominant series overall. So congratulations to Mint Theseus for moving on to the next round of MSL's playoffs, and a thank you very much to the side of Rising Tide Abyss for participating in MSL this year, as they have been eliminated. It was my pleasure to cast you guys today, and I hope I will see you guys again at some point in the future. With all that being said, I could reach out for a short interview. I'll see if they're asking, and if not, I'll probably just move on. Let's check. All right, fine. They're asking. All right, I'll be right back with an interview, guys.
Alrighty.
All right, welcome back, everybody. I'm here with the victorious jungler Idol of the side of Mint Theseus. Idol, once again, congratulations on your win today. How are you feeling?
Thank you. Pretty good. Me and the boys were anticipating this like all week. One of their players was sort of throwing some banter at us all week, and it was a bit weak, but it definitely fueled us, I think. So we're pretty glad that we Like, I don't mean to like be cocky and stuff, but like we rolled them pretty hard,
I mean, yeah,
so
you guys
it was
smashed them.
nice. It was really nice.
It's pretty simple. I mean, there was like a moment in that first game before like Yone's TP onto bot lane where it seemed like maybe they had something going, but then, you guys shut that down pretty quick. In that second
Yeah,
game, it looked like the Smolder Asol might finally come back, but then you guys found your moment. And in this one, even though you guys started from behind, you could kind of feel it. After a couple of mistakes from Sloth Balls, it just felt
yeah.
like you guys really started to take control of the game. It just really felt like you guys were kind of bleeding because like Volibear was getting on that a lot of nice ganks on top side. But even with the ganks happening on top side, Krasbudo still felt like he was very in control.
I mean, listen, you can throw everything at Krasbudo and it will not matter. Like he will gap your top laner. Like I don't know. Like I think Volibear ganked like 5 times in like 15 minutes, and like I think he 2v1 them like once or something. Like it honestly, like it doesn't matter. I think it honestly it fuels him more. I think you just have to, when you play against Krasbudo, you just have to let your top laner just like die in peace. Um and just try and get somewhere else on the map. But I mean, then it's pretty hard because Asteria is sort of the goat. He's honestly he's got to be like the best ADC in the league. This guy is like actually insane. So I don't know.
Yeah, it's tough. It's tough because then also I was saying on the cast, your brand looked really clean. As like a side note
Thank
about
you.
this pick in particular, it's not really like a common pick right now. Have you had a lot of practice on this champion? Is this a champion you think that you're particularly good at, or is this something you just happen to pull out and look good on?
I mean, it's not really like a hidden thing. Like if you do any level of scouting, you'll see that like whenever I play it, I pop off. Um, so yeah, I've played it for a while now, probably about like 2 years. Um, and I mean, I'm just like, I don't mean to stroke my own thing, but if I get brand and we get like one or two good fights, like it's most likely just wraps.
A lot of confidence on the pick.
Yeah, yeah, for the most part.
hmm It was cool to see it. I did also want to ask. It's something that hit the ban table a lot. What are your thoughts on Lilia right now?
Honestly, like same play, like same kind of thing. Like I don't know. I if they let me have that, like it probably would have looked like that game 3 right there on
For sure.
brand. Like it would have been the same thing. Like I think I played Lilia against these guys when we played them in the regular season, and I pretty much like not solo won the game, but the game was close and I had a pretty clutch couple sleeps, so
Yeah,
I
you
don't
were
blame
able to
them
be
for
a
banning
difference
it.
maker. Yeah.
I was going into this series expecting like Brand and Lilia to be banned, and I was like, prepping some things, but you know,
Do you think that this series was as easy as you anticipated it be, as you would have anticipated it being going in, or did you
I
expect more
mean,
resistance?
I don't know, because I will give them some credit. They had some game one, there wasn't really much fight. Game two, there was a bit more fight, but low key, that's because they were just playing like Acel Smolder. I feel like that's pretty hard to like pilot incorrectly.
hmm
Um, and then game three, I'll be honest, like they made some good plays, but I think that was more just us making mistakes. Like I was sort of telling some guys to reel it back a bit. I think we made some bad plays, myself included. Like I'm not just throwing all my teammates under the bus, but I think we made it hard on ourselves, not more than they made it hard on us. I think.
For sure, playing a little bit too loose sometimes when you're feeling very good about the series.
Yeah, yeah.
For sure. Well, obviously, you guys are progressing to the next round. How are you feeling about how you guys are doing right now as a team, and how are you feeling about your odds going forward in the rest of the tournament?
We're pretty confident. But I do like to keep my boys humble. I think that the team that we will be facing, Sin at Dawn, I think they are pretty good. Um, but like I don't know, I'm just really confident in these guys. They're just so good. I don't know. It's just it's hard to not like think that we're gonna win, you know?
hmm
And then when you think like that, it's just like I don't know. You're so accelerated. You know what I mean?
How do you guys think you do under more adversity? Like, if you guys had dropped that game too, how do you think your team would respond?
I think we would respond like just exactly how we played in the game 3 because like we've got a lot of level-headed guys that would be able to like reel each other in and get everybody like back to square one basically.
For sure. That's good to hear, man. And I'm glad to hear such a vote of confidence in your guys' team. Um, at this point in the interview is typically when I'll just kind of open the floor and I'll just kind of allow you to say whatever you'd like to say to anyone who might be listening or, the mentorship community and beyond.
Uh, I mean, I don't really have much. I've sort of just like said everything that I want to say.
Shout outs to anyone or shout outs to anyone that might have been flaming.
I mean, shout out to just like my whole team. Like they're actually all just the goats. Our coach Reeves, who helps us with like draft and stuff. I think we basically win like every single draft that we have.
Yeah, I have to
I
say
don't
that
think we have
Kale,
draft
the
to
Kale
lose.
R5, wow, that was so good. I was really
Yeah,
happy
I
with some of your
mean,
guys' draft decisions today.
that was all Krasbudo with the cook there. I
Great call.
think like
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I don't know. I could ramble on about like every each one of like my teammates
Yeah, I mean, and
and
not to
say
like leave out Korean Flamer or anything, but like Sifra had like a lot of like really Smurf looking bubbles this game too. So you guys look
oh
good.
yeah.
You guys should definitely have a lot of confidence going forward.
Actually, I do wanna shout out my boy Korean Flamer because even though this guy might not put up amazing stats, without him we aren't where we are. This guy is like the best like supportive mid laner. This guy plays like crazy roaming picks.
He's the glue guy.
And then like bro, if you get him on like an Oriana or a Victor like we saw it in the game 1 on Ori, like he'll still just like do just as good. So like that's my goat. That's my goat.
For sure. Yeah, sometimes you do need the underappreciated unsung heroes to be able to help bring a team together. And
Yeah,
honestly,
he's a role player.
that's what you would hope that the mid laner does. You know what I mean? You, like, just be where he needs to be. Yeah.
Yeah, I'd hate for my mid laner to be like crazy cocky and like typing in banter chat before the series even starts. That'd be really lame.
Yeah, I mean, I imagine you're talking about sloth balls. Then again, I mentioned it so many times in the cast. I saw a lot of moments where they did a lot of good stuff, and then a lot of moments where like they just did something that was not as good for sure. But you
Yeah,
guys
yeah.
handled that, and always really fun to take care of some beef that's happening in the banter chat. So once again,
Yeah, it's nice.
congratulations to
Nice
you,
stuff.
and I'll
Thank
be
you, thank
looking
you.
forward to seeing you guys more in the future.
Thank you.
Okay, have a nice night, man.
See you, man. See ya.
Okay, guys, once again, that was Idol, the victorious jungler of Mint Ship Theseus. They looked really good today, so once again, congratulations to them as they move forward in the tournament. That is all from me as your host today, Mackie, on the cast. I will be right back with you guys, I think, next week for probably another Noble game and another Diamond series. If I am not on, every single game, I will for sure be back for the finals of either league. So thank you to anybody who might be listening now and who might be watching the VOD later. It has been my pleasure, and good luck on the Rift, and I'll see y'all next time.